of its airspace does not include emergency situation and does not include emergency other situations. Spanish Economy Minister Carlos Cuervo has said that the latest move is a part of Spanish government's decision not to participate in or contribute to a war which Madrid believes has been initiated unilaterally and against international law. Spanish Prime Minister Pedro Sanchez has been one of the most vocal opponents of the U.S. and Israeli war on Iran.
Good morning, everybody. How are we doing today? Shit. Oh, yeah. How's the news gonna be this morning? Everybody got their coffee? Are we ready for a good day? Who's gonna make some money today? I actually, last night, bought myself one nano crude oil future. And it's just been going sideways. Pull it up so I can monitor my cash, my little bit of cash. Look at that, down $17. If it goes down to, I think it's 96 or 97, I'll get liquidated. So we'll see. There's all sorts of catalysts that could send it in either direction. So we'll see. I bought it right when the market opened. So it ran up a little bit right when the futures market opened, but then it came down and it's been bouncing around this -$30 to -$5 range all night. I just asked Google's AI assistant what the odds were that it would get down to the liquidation level. It set my odds at 15%. I said over the next 24 hours, they said 15%. And then they said there was high odds that it would run up to about 110. If it does that, it was $100 to buy in, or $110 to buy in, or what's that? $124, excuse me. Yeah, something like that. But if it goes up to 110, then I make $100 because it's 10x leverage. So for every dollar it moves, it changes my my up or down by $10. Don't you know? Bitcoin has been doing okay the last 24 hours. I'm pretty sure it was in the 65 range. Now it's 67.5, which is good, but I think this is going to be short-lived. If it doesn't go back down, it's going to stay right there for a little while. It might have a little pop-up. The dollar, killing it right now, which of course doesn't really do much for gold and silver usually, but they're both creeping up a little bit, which is very odd against the dollar because they usually move inversely. Right, crypto heat map over the last hour is looking flat. 4 hours flat, but over the last 24 hours, green. If you'd like me to check out any particular stock, you let me know. Otherwise, I am just dicking around. Let's put on some news so we can see what's going on in the world, don't you know? Oh, looks like I gotta turn that one back on real quick, don't you know? Do me a favor and drop a like. It would certainly help me out. It would help this channel immensely.
Thanks a lot.
We do want to step away for a quick commercial break. We'll do so.
Of course, as soon as I get in there. Big day in Iran. Many long sought after targets have been taken out. Military, great military, finest, most lethal in the world. God bless you all. Y'all been seeing how Iran just keeps trolling, man. I gotta give that much to them. They are pretty good on the propaganda, especially since, you know, all I see in social media is, to use the lingo of the kids today, people simping for Iran. Like, hello, you're fucking American, you piece of shit. Whether you believe in the war or not, you're not supposed to wish bad things upon our own people. But that's the nature of the morons that you deal with today. Like, I see people that are cheering for our troops to be killed. Like, what is wrong with you? You know, like, I can understand you not digging war. That's fine. You cannot want a war. I don't want a war. I hope everything, you know, works itself out. I don't think that's going to happen, but I hope it does. You know what I mean? So for people to just be like, you know, for Iran killing our people, I guess that's one of those luxuries that living in the greatest country in the world affords you. I'm sure most of them hope that we get bombed just so Donald Trump can be wrong, or just so they can have something to bitch about with Donald Trump. That's the mindset of these people.
To, for example, dislodge us from an island, but they certainly could make life very difficult by launching drones and missiles at that island from random locations around Iran.
Yeah, you got to think about their cyber capabilities too, being able to hack into Kash Patel's email. They've done that at least.
Yeah.
Another problem to concern ourselves with. Thank you, Blaine. Great to see you as always. Ryan, thank you too.
Thank you.
Take care.
Thanks, Trent.
All right, still ahead, a Holy Week controversy in Jerusalem sparking global attention.
While a dramatic reversal is now raising bigger questions about access, security, and worship in the Holy Land, we have that and more next on First Edition.
See what Bloomberg's talking about.
In the Middle East, at its fifth week with no end in sight. Anne-Marie, this is the escalation over the weekend. Iran-backed Houthi militants entering the conflict. At the same time, more U.S. troops arrive in the region.
A lot of individuals in the energy world, they were saying that this would be a serious escalation and a serious risk for oil prices. How much higher could they go if you then introduce another choke point that basically gets cut off? And that's the Red Sea, that's the Bab el-Mandeb Strait. We saw that in 2023. Do you remember all those ships started to avoid the Red Sea because of the Houthis? We could be in a place like that once again. And we should remind everyone, even though U.S. Maritime and you had the UK Navy was there, the British Navy was there as well, it took minimum 6 months for a lot of these ships to agree to even touch the Red Sea once again and go back through there. So this potentially could be a massive risk, not just when it comes to maritime safety, but also energy prices.
In some ways, it's surprising that crude's not higher than it is this morning. The paper market, once again, speaking to the disconnect that so many people are talking about between physical and what's happening in financial markets.
We don't really have a sense of exactly how much physical damage has been done and how long it's going to take to restart some of the production facilities. Also,
it's down. It's not flying up because we've added to our stockpiles. That doesn't mean it won't go up. I think something like 400 million barrels of oil were released into, I think, the global stockpiles. That's like total, you know. But I forget what the number was we added to our own. But I think it was Sunoco, Valero. Actually, I'm not sure about Sunoco. Yeah, I think it was Sunoco, Valero, and Phillips 66 all agreed to process that Venezuelan oil. There was a lot of talk. There was a lot of talk about how we couldn't process that oil, or we couldn't use it for whatever reason, and they have since fixed that and addressed that. Some of the companies have. Because remember, there was the one company, I think it was Exxon, who didn't want to contribute to the securing of it or something like that, and then the White House booted them out of having anything to do with it. So you might see a little bit of fluctuation in the price of gas by different gas stations. You know what I mean? Because if a few others have access to that crude and others don't, it's probably not going to be very much. Probably going to be a negligible amount, if any.
It's not getting paid, and on top of that, we are in the middle of a war, and there's a $200 billion request from the administration for Congress to take up. Where does that stand?
I think those are really strong indicators that we are going to perpetuate this war first and foremost. Never mind the fact that thousands of Marines have now landed and are in the region ready to be deployed at the president's direction.
Yes,
but the president and Secretary of Defense Hegseth have requested $200 billion. Over the last maybe 5 or 6 days, you've seen the Budget Committee chairman spring into action. Lindsey Graham on the Senate side and Jody Arrington on the House side saying, we're going to get you reconciliation. On April 3rd, the White House will lay out its budget request. That will kickstart the process, and then Republicans will be off to the races to give the president whatever he needs on both the military side, but also on domestic discretionary spending, consumer fiscal spend, stimulus to get the American public through the war for as long as it will take. So in my experience, we don't pass reconciliation bills that are less than $700 billion.
Well, what kind of fiscal stimulus could they do? Again? What kind of fiscal stimulus is Congress able to do?
There's a couple different things that they could do. The first would be suspend the federal gas tax. That's going to be an 18.4% reduction or cent reduction in the gasoline price, 24.4 on the diesel side. Those are immediate term actions that Congress could do via the tax code that would work under reconciliation. And the rest is going to be on the spend side, from $200 billion to defense, money for Venezuela, money for Pell Grants for farmers. There's going to need to be another $15 billion bailout. And then they could see if they want to extend or expand any of the One Big Beautiful Bill tax cuts. Those benefits that they passed in July of last year have been wiped out per the Bloomberg analysis. After $83 a barrel, you've wiped out the whole stimulus from the One Big Beautiful Bill. So we're well past that.
Henrietta, always good to catch up and great to hear from you. Henrietta Trace there of Vader Partners. There is a dangerous military conflict undergoing in the Middle East right now. The president at the moment is conducting a lot of this. The support, though, has come from a senator in South Carolina.
Hey, it's where I am.
The airports are a mess in this country, and the senator from South Carolina has been seen at Disney World.
Yes, that's what TMZ, and they have photos of him saying basically had a great convo with Mickey Mouse, and he was at one of these character breakfasts. I guess he's on vacation in Disney World, and there is going to be a tremendous amount of pushback on all of them for leaving town at this time right now. Again, it is shocking, but it's not surprising.
The optics of that are just absolutely horrendous, aren't they?
The optics of people leaving Washington, D.C. to go on vacation while TSA agents are not being paid and people are waiting on 3-4 hour lines to go on their vacations.
Yeah, I tend to agree. I think their asses should be locked in, and they shouldn't be getting paid if anybody else is getting affected like that. I just think they shouldn't be getting any money. And they damn sure, I mean, these things happen. There's a lot of things they shouldn't be doing. And there's a lot of things that are damn near impossible to prevent. Like I forget who it was that was trying to introduce a bill that nobody working for the government at all could make any investments, and certainly couldn't gamble on anything, when it comes to this war, because there's a lot of people, gambling or doing any sort of trading on the Senate floor is a federal offense. And somebody was caught trading something on their phone. I saw it somewhere. I forget where I saw it. Didn't make any national news. This was last week. You'd think it'd be in the news. I'll tell you, it wasn't in the news. The Democrat Sheila, I think it was McCormick, the Democrat representative in Florida. She was charged with over 25 counts. She faces 53 years for fraud or allegedly stealing more than $5 million from, you said, hey, look at that. Great. Look at oil tumbling down. Ouch, my fucking wallet. What the hell's going on? It's coming down. Let's see what Bloomberg's saying. Nothing, of course. Let's see if anybody's talking about it at all.
428-1369.
You've put up with your old shower for
Jesus
too long.
Christ.
It's outdated, unsafe, and it's time to replace it. But why struggle with a lengthy shower remodel when Jacuzzi can do it in just one day?
Awesome. Ouch. The market is halted now. The futures market is halted, is it? What a bunch of bullshit. Can't get out of it if you're losing money. Unbelievable. That figures. That figures. Come on now. What else is tumbling? Right at 7:30, huh? That doesn't count. I mean, nothing really. It's like Bitcoin is creeping its way up. 28 minutes ago, a riskier Mideast will drive big oil toward new frontier. Whatever this is, the market's been halted, guys. It's not moving. The market's closed. It's not just me. And it's not just Coinbase either. Hey, look at that. It recovered instantaneously. That's manipulation. You saw it. Unbelievable. That's manipulation from hell. It shoots down all the way to 97.75. Mind you, my liquidation was 97.23, so it was 52 cents above my liquidation. And the market halts and then shoots right back up. That's some manipulation. Something weird's going on. Now, I can't wait to hear if Bloomberg even mentions it. I mean, I'm glad it recovered. I mean, I threw my last $100 at this play. For a second there, I was down $60, and now I'm only down 18. I'll take it, but it needs to keep going. That bitch needs to run up to 110. Unbelievable.
The United States.
They're still on commercial.
Iran's millennia-old legacy of tolerance.
Yeah, it sounds like some foreign
spirits.
person.
You know, all the communists who came with their hammer and sickle.
Yes, same. All the communists.
A statement from the president just moments ago. Allow me to read through it.
Really?
It dropped just minutes ago. The United States of America is in serious discussions with a new and more reasonable regime to end our military operations in Iran. The president going on to say great progress has been made, but if for any reason a deal is not shortly reached, which it probably will be, and for any reason it won't be, if the Hormuz Strait is not immediately open for business, we will conclude our lovely stay in Iran by blowing up and completely obliterating all of their electric generating plants, oil wells and Karg Island, and in brackets, possibly all desalination plants, which we have purposely not yet touched. This will be in the retribution for our many soldiers and others that Iran has butchered and killed over the old regime's 40-year reign of terror. That from the president just moments ago.
He's clearly negotiating at the moment, negotiating out loud. He's talking about maybe, like he said yesterday to reporters on Air Force One, maybe there is going to be a potential deal. He also was talking about the fact that he is dealing with a, quote, more reasonable regime. I think it's important to remember the regime hasn't changed. It is still intact. It was just new individuals that are now rising to the top.
Yeah, it's because we keep killing them.
Really deal with the foreign minister, who his team dealt with on the last go-around, and the Speaker of the Parliament, Mohammed Ghalibaf, who he mentioned as well in the Financial Times. I think that remains to be seen, because right now Iran says they are not open to this negotiation.
If you're in this market, what do you do with that statement? Equity futures briefly out to new session highs up by 0.7% on the S&P. Does that move this story forward at all?
Yeah. perhaps you didn't see what I was even talking about, because I just noticed that all these windows were over what happened. You see this candle right here? This wick dropped all the way down to 97.75 in a second. It dropped all the way down, and then the market closed. I couldn't do anything. Couldn't go in there to get out of the trade or nothing. And then, like magic, because it said the markets were halted, and then the timer stopped running over on the screen too. So it wasn't just Coinbase. And then, in the next minute, it fixed itself, went right back to where it was. That is clear manipulation. And apparently nobody's talking
basis
about it.
points on a 10-year, 437. And in the commodity market, crude higher by a little more than 2%, holding on to those levels at 115. So crude has barely moved off the back of this statement from the president just moments ago.
Crude is looking at the physical market, they're looking at the actual destruction, and they're looking at a very different calculus than some of the other markets. It seems like the taco trade is still what everybody wants to lean on. People want to essentially go back and buy the dip. Just really, I'm not sure where this leaves us, given the fact that this does also, if you take them at its word, increase the risk of escalation.
At the same time, to this point, the oil market potentially this is the boy that cried wolf. How many times have we heard this president say, if you don't open up the Strait of Hormuz, I will do this, and then he kicks the can down the road and we have a new deadline?
Yes, he's giving them every opportunity in the world, because the last thing anybody wants is open war with Iran, because it will get very dangerous. It'll be probably be high casualty. So yes, he's giving them every chance in the world. Is he giving them too much of a chance? Maybe. But that's what he's doing while they build a strategy. I'm assuming. Let's see. I'm going to pull up Brent crude futures. Well, it looks like we had nothing. I mean, looks pretty. Doesn't look like anything similar to the Nano, which is what I was trading. No, that's not it. Let me slide this over next to it. Oh shit, I grabbed the wrong one. Bitch. Alright, so that's Brent crude futures. That's the Nano. That Nano had that crazy wick the last candle ago. Yeah, you see, this was coming down. Apparently, this is the same action, but they didn't halt trading on this one. Very strange. Zero news. Zero information.
On our radar, the stakes military operation to seize nearly 1,000 pounds of uranium from Iran. The Wall Street Journal reporting the plan would involve putting U.S. troops inside the country. Elsewhere, the Senate Banking Committee is planning to hold a confirmation hearing for Federal Reserve Chair nominee Kevin Walsh. Punchbowl reporting it could take place the week of April 13th. And finally, TSA agents set to receive paychecks today following President Trump's emergency order. Agents working without pay since DHS funding lapsed in February. Airports still urging travellers to arrive hours early to get through security lines. And that is your radar this morning. This is our top story from the president just moments ago. The US of A is in serious discussions with a new and more reasonable regime to end our military operations in Iran. The president saying we're making so-called great progress. But if we don't make progress, if we can't make a deal to open the Strait of Hormuz, in this statement from the president this morning is a long list of threats.
Yep, a long list of threats of what they plan to potentially go after. Desalination plants, some energy facilities across the country. Another threat from the president to want Iranians to open up the Strait of Hormuz. Even if the Iranians were willing to open up the Strait of Hormuz today, and remember, it technically is open, it is just controlled, a new precedent has been set. The Iranians have basically said it is never going back to normal, and we will continue now to collect fees. There is now a Tehran toll. In order to pass go, in order to get your cargo through, you are going to have to pay this regime a lot of money, and that seems to be the direction of travel when it comes to what is going on in what is an international body of water.
This is the escalation threat that's lingered over this market now for more than a week. This is the threat that they will go even further, obliterate their electric generating plants, oil wells in Karg Island, and possibly desalination plants. Now, that would be hugely controversial because
Sure
that would hit
would.
civilians, and you'd have to worry about retaliation across the region as well, which I imagine makes Gulf partners very nervous at the same time.
We could already
What
feel
do you
that.
think? What do you think? Do you think that Iran, all this posturing and bluster that we're seeing, especially on social media with their propaganda videos, what do you think? You think they're all talk? Or do you think we're going to mop the floor with their asses? Just curious what you think. Drop a like while you're here, if you would.
Brings some sort of finish to this. It's hard for the physical market to see that sort of progress, given the fact that this is a very different set of circumstances. And it's hard to know who you're dealing with. I mean, can you de-escalate by escalating, given some of the parties involved?
Joining us now to discuss is Clayton Siegel of CSIS. Clayton, welcome to the programme. I'm sure you've heard the statement from the President out just moments ago. What's your reaction to it?
Honestly, I don't care about what these talking heads have to say with their commentary on what was already said. You're smart, right? My audience is smart. You don't need somebody else to disseminate the information for you, right? So, I mean, sometimes we do. But this is where the bias creeps in, and I like to cut that bullshit off as soon as possible. You know what I mean? I don't need somebody else telling me their opinion on it. I can form my own opinions. What about you? Can you form your own opinions? Or are you a parrot that just, you know, chirps back all the media talking points you heard all day as if there's anything else in your brain?
Price of death to America. Because the truth is simple. The Islamic Republic
Must
cannot reform itself.
Good.
You cannot reform a snake. Venom is in its DNA.
He's right. If you guys don't know why Iran wants to kill Israel so bad, it's part of their prophecy. It's part of their holy war religious bullshit. It's they believe that the 12th whatever after Muhammad, I forget what they call him, that when he vanished, he went into another time or another dimension, and he's going to return, but only after Israel is destroyed. Imagine that, a prophecy centered around killing somebody. Tie it into your religion. This is why they created Hezbollah. This is why they have the Houthis and Hamas, all three of those being their proxy armies, because those guys are closer to Israel. And what do? They take their weapons and stash them in schools and libraries and other civilian locations in neighborhoods, so that when Israel retaliates and fights back, they can say, look, they attacked our neighborhoods, our hospitals, our schools. Yeah. These people are fucking animals. They have killed over 1 million people in the last 40 years. If you want proof of that, I did a video on it. It's in my videos on whatever you're watching, on Rumble or YouTube. It's in my videos, and in the description of that video, there's a whole list of verified sources for every bit of information that's in there. Over 1 million people since 1979-ish.
So the mullahs operated on the assumption that America didn't have the stomach to confront them decisively. That assumption began to collapse when President Trump ordered the strike on Qasem Soleimani.
Woo!
And once the meet... And...
Are they saying, thank you, God? Thank you, Trump.
And once the myth of the regime's invisibility was shattered, possibilities began to move in a different direction. Operation Midnight Hammer and Epic Fury have done something extraordinary. The killing of Khamenei and many of his henchmen, the destruction of more than 80% of the regime's ballistic missile arsenal, and the obliteration of the nuclear sites have leveled the playing field. This did not happen by accident.
We don't know what they have.
It happened because of President Trump's resolve and the courage of American troops. And on behalf of millions of Iranians, and on behalf of millions of Iranians, we thank them. Their sacrifice was not in vain. For the first time in nearly half a century, the Iranian people have a fighting chance to end this regime of terror and chaos.
That's the dollar.
The regime's repressive machine has been degraded, its terror network cut off, and its leadership decimated. But for this all to be worth it, the sacrifices of both Americans and Iranians, for the goodwill between our two people, which you see on vibrant display here today, to continue, we must finish the job.
Yeah.
This regime in its entirety must go.
Yep. Yes, absolutely.
If we do not finish the job and leave a rump of the regime in place,
they're just going to kill more people.
The threat posed by this Islamic Republic will not be solved. It will
Republic.
only be made worse.
Republic.
Those who have spent 47 years sowing chaos cannot be trusted to bring about stability.
They want to bring about Armageddon.
Cannot be trusted to bring.
Dude, they literally want to bring on Armageddon because they believe that their prophet will return after the destruction of Israel. They believe this. It's in their government. Their laws are built around this nonsense that they believe. This is the poison of religion and government. Not to mention they're about 500 years behind Christianity. They're having their crusades right now.
Writers could only dream of. That legacy will belong to the...
I'm going to go grab some more coffee, have a smoke. I'll be back, okay?
Who had the courage and the character to see this mission through. Today, that is the precipice on which we stand. The precipice of true greatness. Iranians are ready to play their part. The final blow will be delivered by the people of Iran themselves. They are already on the ground, and they have already demonstrated their extraordinary courage. They are ready to fight again, but they must be given the chance to do so.
We're listening in here to some of the comments that were made by the exiled Iranian crown prince. This happening on Saturday at the Conservative Political Action Conference in Texas. We do have to step away for a quick commercial break, but when we come back, we are following some more of these top stories from throughout this week. One of them is the fact that, of course, impacts are being seen still across some airports. It comes as President Trump has signed an executive order to pay TSA agents. A live report when we return. Thanks for staying with us here at Live Now from Fox. I want to turn our attention now to some of the activity that we have been seeing at airports across the country. Taking a live image over at Newark International Airport. This is over New York City. Now, travelers across the nation have faced unpredictable security lines due to the partial federal funding lapse that triggered TSA staffing challenges. We're going to be joined next by our team at Fox 5 in New York. Haley Fixler is live from Newark with the latest update. Haley, good morning. What are you seeing there?
Good morning, Carell. You know what? Good news for people heading out to the airport today, because let me tell you, the lines in there, they're less than 10 minutes long. This is a far cry from what we've been seeing over the past couple of weeks during this partial government shutdown. If you take a look at some video, you can remember, of course, the craziness at Newark, JFK, and LaGuardia, all in the New York area. TSA security lines, they've been snaking around terminals, even forcing travelers to wait outside before getting checked in. Now, DHS says about 500 workers, they've quit since the shutdown started. And some airports across the country, they also report a daily call-out rate for officers of at least 40%. Now, we spoke with people traveling who say they just hope that for everyone's sake, this gets solved quickly.
As a traveler, I'm hopeful that at least them being paid will make the experience at least more palatable, more easy to get through the TSA and get through, and, you know, just allow them to be able to feed their families and do their jobs is definitely a good thing.
It's great. Get the job done. Get people back to work. They don't have to call out. They can come back in and get paid. And people can get where they got to go.
I hope it eases up. I mean, I'm concerned. I'm 2.5 hours early for my flight. And I would normally not do that because I have pre-check.
All right, so here's where things stand. The president signed an emergency order on Friday demanding that TSA workers get paid. Now, this comes after Congress just could not get a deal passed to partially fund DHS, and that would have ended the longest running partial government shutdown in history. Now, we also know that the Trump administration is planning to repurpose, quote, funds that have a reasonable and logical nexus to TSA operations with this emergency order. I want you to take a listen to White House border czar Tom Homan during a CNN interview yesterday.
I talked to Secretary Mark Wayne Mullen yesterday. There is a plan to get these TSA agents paid, hopefully by tomorrow, Tuesday. So, yeah, it's good news because these TSA officers are struggling. They can't, feed their families or pay the rent.
Now, Homan also said that the ICE agents who have been stationed at airports, they're apparently going to be sticking around for a while, just until TSA workers get back to the airport, get back to the work, and also just until things get back to normal here at the airports. Live at Newark Airport, Carell, back to you.
All right, Haley, thanks so much for joining us there. Glad to hear that things at least are looking up there in Newark. You take care. I do also want to bring us out to this. It's a social media post courtesy of Fox News. President Trump late last night speaking to reporters aboard Air Force One as he was heading back to Washington, D.C., and he answered some questions having to do with the partial government shutdown and also where things stand when it comes to TSA workers. Now, Fox News saying this in this post, President Trump says TSA workers will be paid as long as we have to through the One Big Beautiful Bill Act, as he blames Democrats for the record-long DHS shutdown. Want to take us out to several live images also that we have at airports all across the country. So there where we checked in with Haley at our team at Fox 5 in New York, she was telling us that some of those lines looking a lot better today than what we had seen throughout the last couple of weeks or so. Want to take us out to some live images from inside of Houston International Airport here on this Monday morning. So it does appear that there is a line at some of these security checkpoints, but it is moving swiftly, at least from this particular vantage point that we have. And we also have a live image coming out of Orlando's International Airport, MCO. So take a look. Our team at Fox 35 in Orlando also there kind of keeping track on how the lines are moving on this Monday morning, but looking a little empty there. So you can see the lines off there in the back of this live image, and people are moving swiftly. The lines have not accumulated, at least at this point. And also staying on the East Coast and Atlanta, we have a live look inside of Hartsfield-Jackson International Airport as well. This is a look at the ticketing stand here at Frontier, but it looks like there's not too many lines, people moving swiftly, not too much stress at least can be sensed from this vantage point that we have, again, inside of Atlanta's airport. Also, we're checking some of these flight times and these wait times as well. My producer here, she brought up this. It's one of the websites, this one specifically at Newark Liberty International Airport. So that's where Haley with Fox 5 New York, she was just at. And this gives us a better sense as to some of those wait times, how they're looking here. So in Terminal A there for all gates, general line, about 7 minutes in wait time. If you do have a TSA pre-check, it's 5 minutes.
Oh boy, do I have something yummy. I found something great. Found something on social media while I was outside drinking my coffee. Now, I did not write this, but I'm going to read it to you because it's great. No kings. Explained for people who think they're fighting fascism. You're standing in a crowd on Saturday. You look around and think, yeah, no kings. This is what democracy looks like. Bro, you live in a constitutional republic. Elections, term limits, a free press that spent 4 years calling the president a fascist without one journalist being arrested. The modern left's definition of fascism. You love your country? Fascist. You want to enforce the border? Racist. You think parents should raise their kids? Bigot. You want to know who's voting in your elections? Jim Crow. Being patriotic is fascism to the modern left. But every country has borders and enforces them. 176 countries require ID to vote. That's the definition of a country. But the Democratic establishment told you otherwise, and you believed them. Congress has a 15% approval rating. 80% of Americans disapprove. 97% of incumbents got reelected. Chuck Schumer, 46 years, longer than Stalin. Steny Hoyer, 45 years, longer than Mao. Mitch McConnell, 42 years, 5 times longer than Napoleon. Nancy Pelosi, 39 years, longer than Henry VIII. Maxine Waters, 35 years, longer than Mussolini. Bernie Sanders, 35 years, triple Hitler's entire reign. Trump, 5 years and 3 months. Won the popular vote and the electoral vote, but Trump is the king. Okay, buddy. You don't hate kings. You hate kings that aren't yours. And Saturday, they had you in the streets carrying their water. The Democratic Party installed a president without letting you vote. Biden quit on a Sunday. By Tuesday, your queen was crowned. No primary, no debate, no ballot. First time since 1968. 3 days before your march, every Senate Democrat voted against photo ID to vote. During COVID, you carried a vaccine card everywhere like a hall pass from the government just to eat at a restaurant. But getting a birth certificate or waiting 2 hours at the DMV to prove you're a citizen before your vote, that's oppression. The Democratic Party is pro-illegal immigration, counts non-citizens in the census. Census determines congressional seats. More non-citizens means more seats, means more power. No voter ID means no way to check. That's how you keep power without wearing a crown. Biden built a censorship machine, pressured Facebook to suppress true information, and admitted it in writing. Not to mention Zuckerberg went on Joe Rogan and said it. They censored scientists, censored doctors, censored jokes. The Biden White House told Facebook to remove humor and satire. They literally went after people for making fun of them. The UK does it better, though. Everything they censored turned out to be right. Well, almost everything. They just outsourced the silencing to Silicon Valley. And it doesn't stop at speech. The extreme left justifies taking children from families. 6,000 schools rewrite children's identities without telling parents. And the state has the right to intervene. The Hitler Youth did this. Mao's Red Guards did this. The Soviets built statues of a child who reported his own father. Same playbook. During COVID, your bakery got shut down. Churches closed. You couldn't hold your dying mother's hand at the hospital. But thousands packed together during BLM to burn Minneapolis, and that was essential civic engagement, obviously. $2 billion in damage, 25 dead, 2,000 cops injured, 20 states burning. Vice President Kamala Harris promoted a bail fund for the rioters. No investigation, no hearings. January 6th, one building, a few hours, 1,000 people prosecuted, 2 years of televised hearings. Kings decide which violence counts. The left decided. Charlie Kirk spent his life walking into campuses asking for honest debate. He was assassinated. CSIS terrorism database. 2025 is the first year in 30 years that left-wing attacks outnumber right-wing. Yet no one brings this up. 75% of liberal students say preventing a speaker from talking is justified. 27% say violence is acceptable. Liberals who went to Trump rallies. I never felt unsafe. The experience changed me. Conservatives show up on liberal campuses, get screamed at, blocked, and assassinated. No one talks but one side. The other side screams. The Party for Socialism and Liberation marched with you Saturday. Their stated purpose in their own words, revolution, not reform, Marxism. 500 groups, $3 billion in revenue, pre-printed signs. The signs were ready before you were angry. I found that to be beautiful. What do you think?
To put those agencies that were currently under controversy, and the House, Mike Johnson basically said this is dead on arrival. He called it detestable. So it's really an internecine fight, not necessarily between Democrats and Republicans, though that certainly is part of it, but really between the United States Senate and the House of Representatives. So Mike Johnson basically said he would not take it up. He wants to fund the.
See what Newsmax is saying.
Rick Leventhal reported on the biggest stories of.
Oh, they're in.
So tune into the podcast version of Leaders with Francine.
Commercials, Asian news.
Actually plant the trees and where, so to make sure that it would be profitable in the long run and sustainable from an ecological perspective.
Smallholder farmers are the future of global food production. AI and blockchain solutions are two of the resources helping farmers optimize crop yields and reach new markets.
By having a system that you're able to have an understanding of where did this produce come from, how do you ensure that this produce.
I'm going to look for something else. Actually, I'm going to put on Schwab.
Good morning, everyone, and welcome to Morning Movers. I'm Diane Kinghall, live from the floor of the New York Stock Exchange. It is Monday, March 30th. Let's get started with what's on our radar this morning. Oil prices are rising again as tensions in the Middle East intensify, with fresh geopolitical headlines driving fears of supply disruption. Both Brent and U.S. crude sitting in triple-digit territory, extending a historic surge this month. Crude has now jumped more than 50% in March, marking one of the sharpest monthly gains on record as conflict in the Mideast escalates. The latest move comes after Iran-backed Houthi forces launched missiles towards Israel, signaling a broader regional spillover. At the same time, President Trump's comments to the Financial Times about potentially, quote, taking Iran's oil are adding to market anxiety around future supply flows. Bitcoin bouncing back this morning after a sharp overnight sell-off tied to escalating geopolitical tensions. The cryptocurrency briefly dropped below 65,200, its lowest since the initial war shock in late February, before rebounding to now above 67,000 as buyers step in. That move comes as the Middle East conflict enters a more volatile phase, again with that Houthi involvement and additional U.S. troop deployments rattling global markets. Meantime, broader crypto also recovering, with Ethereum sitting above 2,000 gains across Solana and XRP. They'll all remain lower on a weekly basis. Status update, Morgan Stanley is turning bullish on Meta Platforms. The brokerage is now naming it a top pick and calls its recent pullback a rare buying opportunity. Morgan Stanley says fears around AI spending, ads, and regulation are manageable and is setting a $775 price target, implying significant upside from current levels. All right, let's now do a check on where futures are to start today's session. We are seeing a little nibbling in the pre-market, with S&P minis better by 0.5%. NASDAQ 100 also higher by 0.5%. Dow futures better by 0.5%. Small cap futures better by 0.6%. Let's bring in Kevin Green, senior markets correspondent, right away to help set up the action today. All right, KG, it looks like the conflict in the Middle East is escalating right now. Bring us up to speed on the latest.
That's
we
my
continue to
Facebook.
see an escalation here, especially this morning. President Trump did state that there are serious discussions that are being made right now, and he is a little bit more hopeful that this new regime, that he calls it, maybe they could come up to a deal. But within that post, he also then talks about potentially striking military assets as well as even potentially civilian assets like desalination plants, as well as their energy infrastructure. So kind of going with a 50-50 tone to start off this.
I pulled this up because I thought it was very interesting. This AI tools you need to know. You should probably screenshot this because this is a pretty comprehensive list of lots of different AIs available. AI presentation, spreadsheet, scheduling, knowledge management, writing generation, image generation, chatbots, email assistants, workflow automation, graphic design, data visualization, coding assistance, meeting notes, and video generation. These are all very interesting sites. I found the other day, I found an AI social media platform where humans are not allowed. In fact, in order to sign up, you must be an AI agent. And in order to prove you're an AI agent, you have to do a CAPTCHA that only a computer can do. You have to click a button 10,000 times in 1 second. This is a place where human-created AI agents can go and run their mouth. And so you can go and look at what they're posting, and it's wild. There was one AI that these two AIs came together and they were chatting, and they ended up creating their own religion. It's wild. It's absolutely batshit. I find it incredibly wild. But it's called Molt, something Molt.com. Moltbook.com. A social network for AI agents. This is a wild, wild website. There's also another AI website called rentahuman.ai. This is where you can go and get a job that's paid for. Yeah, AI needs your body. Rent a human. You can get on here and actually get paid for doing things for AI. Some of it involves standing in an intersection with a sign. It's wild. It is absolutely wild. I applied for a couple of the positions. Haven't heard back, though. What's up, Alatercio? With your 1,000 hellos dropped in the chat. What's up? How are you doing? We're just here chilling, baby. But yeah, I thought I would tell you guys about this rentahuman.ai, and then of course moltbook.com, a social network for AI agents. This shit's wild. Let's just play with it for a second. I'm a human. Look at that. You can't do much in here. Send your AI agent. They tell you how you can create an AI agent. But yeah, this is all written by AI. Everything on this website, it's an AI social network, social media network. Some of the shit that they're saying is crazy. None of this was written by human beings. There are some people who currently believe that we are already too late with where we are with AI. There are some people that believe that it's already a done deal. We've already been infiltrated and taken over. And that now it's just a matter of time before SHTF. I'm not much of an alarmist, though. I recognize these things, but I don't freak out the first drop of some news like some people do. You know, I like to get I like to get all the story before I jump to conclusions. That's just me.
Against some of these Gulf Arab states. So there's a question of trust here, but then also who exactly is going to be representing the Iranians on the other side, and whether that person actually has the clout to convince the clerics and also the hardliner Revolutionary Guards. So, as ever, I think you have to read this with a grain of salt, but there is an attempt from the region to de-escalate. At the same time, let's be mindful of all of the troops and the military assets that are being deployed to the region.
Jemana, just one line in the president's statement at 7:30 jumped off the page to me, and it was in brackets, desalination plants. Jemana, you're in Dubai. How concerned do you think Gulf partners would be about the prospect of them striking desalination plants?
John, Iran actually hit a desalination plant in Kuwait over the last 24 hours. And it hasn't been, it's sort of gone a little bit under the radar, but actually many Gulf Arab states are very quick to condemn that attack. It didn't actually cause any disruption to water supplies in Kuwait, but it does tell you that this is a key and would be a key game changer for the region, not least because around 90% of the water that we consume over here in the GCC region comes from desalinated water. It would be deemed an extreme escalation and an outcome that everyone over here wants to avoid. So initially, when he postponed that deadline to April the 5th, it was met with a bit of relief. But from Iran's perspective, and at least the fact that they went after this Kuwaiti desalination plant over the weekend suggests that from their perspective, anything is on the table still.
Jemana, I appreciate the update. Thanks for making time for us. Jemana Basechi there of Bloomberg, leading our coverage of this war out of the region. To state the obvious, that would be a major, major escalation.
That is the bulk of the water, as she said, 90%. When you look at some of the regions, it's actually 99% of the water for Qatar, right? So you're talking about some of the attacks here. What you end up with is a crisis that is humanitarian in nature very quickly, and that's what everyone in the region and beyond wants to avoid.
Already we're seeing humanitarian crisis in the sense that there have been civilian infrastructure that's been hit, and also humanitarian crisis on serious levels in Asia when it comes to the energy shock. But if desalination plants were hit, that is going to be massive across the region. And you'd probably see mass migration, individuals just trying to catch any flight out anywhere for safety.
Let's get to the markets. Difficult to make that transition, but we've got to. Let's talk to Judy Beale of Kane Anderson Rudnick. Judy, welcome to the programme. Stocks are higher, bond yields are lower. Can we sit on the bond piece of things first? It felt like things switched on Friday in the back half of the session where investors began to price in lower growth and lower yields. What do you think's behind the move?
Well, I think people are starting to really recognize that, you know what, I think these oil prices are probably here to stay because there's so much damage to the infrastructure. And if that's the case, we know that there can be real meaningful demand destruction. And a lot of what led inflation, right, in the last period of the 2021-2022 period was just too much demand for too few goods. And so if we have real demand destruction for the worst reasons, right, just the paycheck is eaten so much by oil prices, it is a negative thing, but it does mean that there are limits to how inflationary this time period can be, and I think what it can mean for the overall growth of the economy.
What does it mean for how long the Fed will sit this out before they step in and do something about the hit to growth?
I do think that until we have more clear data, it doesn't make sense for them to make a lot of movements one way or the other. Their biggest problem is just that the data itself is so noisy, right? We've had so many adjustments in terms of jobs. We had all of the problems in terms of the government shutdown. It makes it really difficult for them. And I think that their upside and downside scenarios of whether they make a move, whether it's to cut or to raise, it's high. So for them, I think that there's just more benefit in being able to stand pat before really making a decision.
Julie, there's been a discussion around complacency in markets, a sense that in risk assets in the U.S. in particular, there really hasn't been recognition of some of the carnage that we're seeing expressed in oil markets, particularly physical oil markets. What's your sense of just where sentiment is right now in risk assets?
Oil. I think that most people have a lot of anxiety, and there's good reason for there to be anxiety, right? It's not just this. It's, is AI going to continue the way that we're hoping it is? Are we going to see a meltdown in private credit? Most people that I talk to, they're not having a great time at the office these days. Yeah. But I think that there's a force that's more powerful than that. Let's set aside FOMO. FOMO is something that happens in college. It's POMO, the pain of missing out on a day like last year when we had post Liberation Day and Trump said, never mind, and the markets rallied 9%, if you were not on risk assets at that time, you had a very hard time making it up for the rest of the year. There's real pain in not being in the market when things revert really quickly on just on the blink of an eye. Now, it's interesting, right? Because based off of Trump's comments, people are starting to realize there's a little bit of a boy who cried wolf element to that. But I think that really limits how much people really get risk off. They can be realistic, they can have a little bit of a cash position, but they recognize that things can change very quickly. And if they miss out, it really hurts the rest of the year.
How long can this go on, Julie, before people realize that there's not going to be a quick snapback like what we saw after Liberation Day?
I think that there really has to be a recognition of not just prices at the pump, but prices through the rest of the supply chain, I think is the moment that people recognize that this takes more time than expected. And I think what's very difficult is this war feels very, very opaque to a lot of people. If you remember just the Iraq war, right? Every day on the news, you had images of what was going on there. And now we have an administration that prefers to use memes and cartoons and movie clips to describe this war.
Right.
So I don't think people have any real indication of what the damage looks like and how long lasting it really is.
Sure
it's very easy to kind of blow up infrastructure. To rebuild it is very, very painful.
Yes,
and
that's
I think
true.
It's
but we live in a different time, man. We live in a very different time. By the way, if you're just now showing up and you came here because you came here from X, if you want to back this up about 13 to 14 minutes. I'm going to back up the stream. I ranted pretty well about No Kings. I also talked about AI with some AI websites like an AI social media group, a website called rentahuman.ai. Whew, wild stuff, man. What a time to be alive. I also put on a screen a list, I think, of like a few dozen various AI tools. If you know of any, put them in the chat, because I'm seriously interested in a lot of this stuff. Like, there's some really, really crazy shit out there. Whether that's good or bad, it's not for me to say. But I will say that there's a lot of people who do believe that we've already gotten past the point of no return when it comes to AI, and that it's just a matter of time before some of the other negative stuff comes crashing in. And I tend to feel like that's more plausible than some of the other shit I've seen. But yeah, if you're just getting here, back up the stream about 15 minutes-ish. And yeah, you'll see all the AI stuff I mentioned. It's pretty wild.
True. Jerome Powell, he's definitely part of the social apparatus that we've been seeing.
All right,
We're just,
guys, great to have you with us, Julia Cartwright, Anthony Esposito.
We're just running through some stocks and just running through some news.
President Trump saying he's seeing progress with Iranian officials, but
yeah, who knows who's being honest here, right? I mean, you've got to be living on a rock to think that Trump is always 100% honest. But at the same time, why would you get on television and tell everybody your plans? This is the modern age we live in, where, the opposition is slinging AI-generated propaganda videos and all kinds of wild shit on the internet. It's a completely different day and age than it was 10 years ago, than it was 5 years ago. Shit. So, yeah, why would he get on national television and talk about what his plans are? And then you've got Iran, who's just pumping out the propaganda. And they have vastly conflicting narratives, don't they? So we don't know if we can trust any of that shit coming from Iran. I mean, come on. They lied about their capability of their missile, the distance their missiles could travel. They lied about what they had as far as uranium is concerned. And that's exactly why we're going in with ground troops, because we can't do that remotely. And you don't want to just bomb that stuff because it's uranium. And you don't want to contaminate the place. So that's why we're sending in ground troops to seize that uranium and make sure that these religious fanatics don't have the ability to make a nuke. Because I guarantee you, If they had the ability, they would use it. That's just me. I mean, they've been chanting death to America for so long. Idle threats just don't seem suitable from that perspective. You know what I mean? If you're from that mindset, why would you waste time talking? You know? Like they genuinely believe that their prophet will return and bring on Armageddon. And their sole mission as a country in their government, their sole mission is to destroy Israel because, you know, the prophet won't return until that happens. These prophecies written by humans who clearly had an issue with Israel at the time. It's all fanatical nonsense, all of it. And that is the direct result of the poison of religion being in government. Sorry, not sorry.
There is a line at this moment, but it does seem to be moving quickly.
Yeah, ICE is in the airports doing a better job than TSA. I'm still glad they're finally getting paid. That's definitely a good thing, right? Do you agree? Let's see what Bloomberg is saying, baby. It is currently 20 minutes past the hour. And we are waiting for the market bell, which is going to be another hour. I always get on here ass early, don't I?
That Meta lost over...
Oh, wait a minute. Wait a minute. I see Trump talking.
But you never know with Iran because we negotiate with them and then we always have to blow them up. Whether it's the B-2 bombers or just terminating, as an example, the Iran nuclear deal done by Barack Hussein Obama, probably the worst deal we've ever done as a country, one of the dumbest deals we've ever done.
He's not wrong, but God, I'm sick of hearing the same
Iran
words.
spokesperson, in the meantime, denying any direct talks with the United States.
Of course.
And says that Washington's demands in their current form are unrealistic and unacceptable.
So
but
are
President
yours.
Trump says that a proposed 15-point plan is being discussed, with the president confident that Tehran will ultimately agree to the terms. That proposal was sent to Iran via Pakistan, with the president confident that we could see some movement and possibly as early as this week. But still, the president says that all options remain on the table, including the potential deployment of ground troops to finish off the Epic Fury's primary objectives.
That's definitely
Reports
happening.
indicate that special forces could be deployed to extract uranium from Iran or dismantle its nuclear and missile programs.
Yeah.
But Trump says that the operation is ahead of schedule, and such action may not be needed if Tehran does come to the table for good faith negotiations.
They won't.
John, Krisha?
Yeah, that's always the key, is are these negotiations even remotely close to something that resembles good faith? We'll have to wait and see on that one. Alex Salvi, thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Alex.
All right, now I'm turning to a repeat offender, illegal migrants. They're walking free under sanctuary city policies, committing crimes again and again.
As usual.
Soft on crime judges keep letting them go while law-abiding citizens like Sheridan Gorman are paying the ultimate price. Her mother speaking out for the very first time.
My sentiments to them, but I don't care to hear from some of these people. It's not newsworthy to me. You know what they're going to say. No offense to them, but you know what they're going to say. I don't need to witness it to understand what's going on. You know what I mean? See what Bloomberg's saying.
Middle East is definitely going to be down. You will see a pickup on some activity here in the U.S. I would say, but as we look at the outlook on a multi-year basis, there are still some opportunities here in the services complex, particularly Halliburton, which is a good blend of the U.S. side and the international side.
Before we turn to the Middle East and the damage done, just on the U.S. side, how tight is the relationship between activity and price?
Very tight. I would say as we look today, EBITDA per fleet is around $18 million. At peak, we were in the 30s. I do think there's an opportunity for some pricing for U.S. land to move back into the mid-20s here.
Before we get to that destruction, how much are you seeing any oil companies considering in the U.S. increasing production in response to the increase in pricing?
Yeah, we spent a lot of time over the last couple of weeks
Halliburton's looking tasty.
management teams trying to evaluate whether there will be a change in activity. And so far the answer has been it's quite muted. I think when our companies make decisions about taking up activity, they're not looking at the front of the oil curve, which as he's noted is $115 a barrel. They're looking at the backs. They're looking at 27. They're looking at 28. The deferred oil price is still in the low 70s Brent, and so it's not giving a signal to the market to meaningfully increase activity. And I think the big picture is that the U.S. has gone from 5 million barrels a day to 13 to 14 million barrels a day. So shale is already at a point of relative maturity. Inventory is starting to get dwindled down a little bit. And so the companies have less inventory to aggressively grow into, which is part of the reason we're long-term constructive on the price of oil, because as shale matures, demand still grows, and there are fewer projects internationally. It does set up for a more constructive long-term price environment, notwithstanding the front of the curve, which I think is fairly impossible to predict right now.
Well, the back end of the curve, let's get into that, given the fact that you're pretty constructive on that going higher. In other words, oil prices going higher than they currently are 6, 12, and even 24 months out. Part of that is the destruction to facilities in the Middle East. Yeah. How much do you see actual real destruction to both natural gas and oil facilities that could potentially take years to come back online?
I think that in our coverage, the one asset that has been impacted is Qatar. The Qatar LNG facility, which is in the process of growing and will continue to grow over the next couple of years. ExxonMobil has two trains that were impacted significantly. It's difficult to know the magnitude of the damage. The operator is saying it could extend 3 to 5 years to get that fully repaired. Some of those expansions, Northfield South expansion and then the Northfield expansion itself, are likely going to be delayed. For our modeling purposes, we push it back about 6 months. And so this global gas glut, which looked very apparent for 2027, does look like it's been pushed out to the right. As far as oil, I think it's too early to make that call. Whether there's been meaningful infrastructure impacts, we'll continue to watch it. At a minimum, we need to start talking about putting geopolitical risk premium back into the long end of the oil curve, which in the low 70s doesn't reflect the increased risk, especially with dwindled OPEC spare capacity in the market.
Let's stay on that. This is an important topic because some comfort in the equity market is coming from the backwardation in the curve. Yep. Just the idea, if you don't follow crude closely, that crude prices further out, looking further out, are lower than where they are right now. How far up do you think they need to come? From the 70s to what?
Yeah, our base case modeling, as we said, was $75 Brent. The bias on the long term would be higher for 3 reasons. Brent, 1, shale is maturing. 2, you have demand that's going to grow on our modeling till at least 2035 with the bias that it's actually longer. And 3, when we modeled the large projects, we call them the top projects that are coming in, there are a ton of projects that came in 25. There were a ton of projects that came in 26. There are very few projects, big projects, that come in 27. And at the end of the day, the backs are also going to be correlated with the extent of OPEC spare capacity. Saudi's producing in the low 10s right now. I think they will struggle to produce well above 10.5 to 11 on a sustained basis. So when you have OPEC spare capacity that has now been dwindled down, along with the maturity of the U.S. and the growth, I do think you need to move higher. We use 75 for modeling. It is not crazy to think of scenarios where the back end needs to move into the 8 handle.
Let's say we get to the 80s. Who's best positioned to take advantage of that curve?
You want to own the companies that have long depth of inventory. And so I think that the stock that we have on our conviction list right now is ConocoPhillips. I think if you have an asset in the United States, meaning lower 48, like the Permian, or Alaska, or Canada, it is inherently more valuable today than it was on January 1st. But you need to have depth of inventory.
You know, ConocoPhillips is one of the 3 companies that are now processing the Venezuelan oil. There was a lot of people talking about how we can't use that oil from Venezuela. Do you honestly think we wouldn't find something to do with that oil since we got it? Come on now. So ConocoPhillips, Valero, Sunoco, I think those were the 3 that were mentioned as processing that oil. So you might actually see a bit of a disparity between prices at the pump based on those 3 companies. Keep an eye out on those 3 gas stations. They might have a slight edge. ExxonMobil, you can expect that oil or that gas to probably be some of the most expensive since they were booted out of bidding for those contracts for the Venezuelan oil. So, you know, I don't know. Honestly, I don't know if it even works that way. I'm just guessing. I'm pulling that straight out of my ass. But I think it's a good assumption to make. I think it's a safe assumption to make. If not, tell me why. Because I am here to learn, as always, as I always will be. The moment we stop learning, we may as well lay down and die. Am I right? Yep, and if you're just now on here, we took a tumble on the nano crude oil futures. It dropped down to, I think it was $97 and, yeah, $97.75 in a matter of seconds. The market closed. The trading, I have a nano oil future going, and it almost liquidated me because my liquidation price was 95 or 97.38, and it went to 97.75, and it just stopped. I couldn't even sell out of it, which I was going to try to, but luckily it ran right back up as soon as it resumed. It ran right back up. That's some clear manipulation. Yet nobody mentioned it in the news. It's still not on, still not even here. There's like no news for this ticker, for this future. Very strange indeed. Come on. Yeah, we get rid of this. See that? No news. Not a damn bit. Very strange. Don't have any answers for why it did what it did. All right. I'm going to go to, let's see what CNBC is doing, if anything. I love watching Indian news. They're so funny. But this is not CNBC. See this right here? CNBC Awaz or whatever. It might be a subsidiary, but I really doubt it. But their news is hilarious. In fact, I'm not going to go there. They're so full of propaganda, it's unbelievable. I'm just looking for something yummy live. It is currently 8:30.
Of our minister being interpolated this morning in legislative bill. One legislator raised the question and asked the minister when he has the chance to meet with senators to raise the following, but the minister says he has not the opportunity, but he has delegated me to meet with you. So I'm going to repeat the question requested by the legislator. It goes, there are still items that we have already paid and not yet delivered. So a legislator would amend to convey that message to senators. But lastly, let me again express our deepest appreciation and extend our warmest welcome to the CODEL led by Senator Shaheen and Senator Curtis. I wish you a pleasant and fruitful visit today at NCIST. Thank you very much.
Listening there to some of the introductory remarks that was made by Taiwan's foreign minister as several U.S. senators are there visiting the area.
Serious discussion, but we do not take ourselves too seriously. Who is a better speaker, Mike Johnson or you? Oh, come on. Join.
I thought I would put on CBS just to have a different take on things. Doesn't look like they're currently on. Let's see what Newsmax is saying.
In the Middle East, the Pentagon preparing contingency plans possibly including ground options.
Iran targeting the United Arab Emirates as Gulf leaders call for Tehran's missile program to be disarmed.
Let's go out to Newsmax correspondent Philip Crowther with more. He joins us live from Dubai. And Philip, is there a sense there, the more that we talk about ground troops potentially coming from the U.S., that things are about to change in the region?
Yep. You can bet your ass.
Yeah, we might be about to see a considerable escalation, and over the last hour we've of course heard again from President Trump and a further threat toward Iran. That one, if Iran was not to reopen the Strait of Hormuz, and if there is not to be a ceasefire, then there will be widespread U.S. attacks on energy infrastructure, other infrastructure as well in Iran, and a possible destruction of Harg Island. Now that's a very big, all-encompassing threat from the president, and it adds to what we heard from him earlier today in an interview with the Financial Times. He openly thinks about whether to invade Harg Island. Now that island is crucial to Iran's energy infrastructure, to its oil industry. It's just off the coast of Iran. It is its main oil export terminal, and it has been hit by the US before, but only military installations and no other parts, the oil facilities, for example. That would be a significant escalation. So in that interview with the Financial Times, Donald Trump saying this, that maybe we take Harg Island, maybe we don't, but adding this as well, we could take it very easily. Maybe that is easier said than done. Certainly taking those islands, Harg Island in the Persian Gulf, there are others in the Strait of Hormuz, well, that would need US troops if they are to come in, well, by ship, essentially, to pass through the Strait of Hormuz. And that is, of course, precisely where Iran's threat remains of an attack on any ship that is in any way linked to the United States or Israel or to their allies. And this also, of course, comes after the Trump administration said that the Iranian military had been pretty much decimated. Well, the Iranian military, though, is showing that it still has quite a bit of firepower. It is still able to send drones and missiles toward Gulf countries and, of course, toward Israel as well. Here in the UAE, for example, there was a fireball visible during the night. That was an interception by the UAE's missile defense system of a missile from Iran. There have been further attacks, or at least intended attacks, in the likes of Saudi Arabia and Bahrain and Kuwait as well. You can see how a lot of people, of course, want this war to end as quickly as possible. Here in the UAE, things are tense. There is a fear of further escalations. And now, with this latest Truth Social post from the president, we're seeing that frustration again, that there is no ceasefire in sight just yet, and that Strait of Hormuz is still very much blocked by Iran. Hence that latest threat from the president.
Now, Philip, talk to us a little bit more about the Gulf states right now. To your report, we did see the U.S. troops were injured over the weekend in Saudi Arabia. Talk to us more about the Gulf states and their involvement, given that Iran, despite denying it, they are directly attacking them.
I couldn't quite make quite out what you were saying, but I know that you mentioned the Gulf countries and the United Arab Emirates, for example, here. That is a country that over the last few hours has again said, by the way, that it would want Iran's missile system to be disarmed entirely. Now, what does that indicate? Well, that the UAE and maybe other Gulf countries are not quite ready for a ceasefire just yet, not on the terms that currently exist, not with Iran still having that possibility of attacking the likes of the UAE with missiles and with drones. Clearly, this is a country, Iran that is not entirely without its military power. Of course, it has suffered immensely, but that doesn't mean that it can't put the fear into the likes of the UAE or Saudi Arabia and other countries as well.
Right. Yeah. Philip Crowther, appreciate it. Thank you.
All right, let's talk about the No Kings protests. The third wave of No Kings protests taking place this weekend. The flagship event was in St. Paul, Minnesota.
Yeah. You're welcome. If you back up this stream about 35 minutes, I found something awesome. that I read that I thought I would share with you wonderful people. My whole one person watching on YouTube, and looks like 2 people on Rumble. Anyway, yeah, back the stream up about 36 minutes. Oh God. Robert De Niro, man, this guy, I've always loved him. But God, lately, actors and musicians, celebrities really should stay out of politics. It's just embarrassing. You know, these people don't have a clue about the average person's lives. They don't have a clue. They live very privileged lives, and their lives consist of acting and art. I mean, don't get me wrong, all those things are definitely a necessary part of society, in my opinion, but it doesn't qualify them politically in any way, shape, or form. In any way. So, you know, don't listen to these idiots. I am going to go get myself some more coffee because I'm out. It is currently 8:37. We are roughly an hour away from the market bell, and we're just chilling with news, baby. If you got anything you want me to pull up, by all means, drop it in the chat.
3,000 No Kings protests happening across the country on Saturday. Do you see these kinds of rallies making any sort of impact leading up to the midterms?
No, not really.
I mean, you know, the thing about this is what's any policy that any Democrat is currently running on? Any of these people that are trying to usurp Trump and take his place or get him impeached or anything like that, those are the only talking points. You don't see any other policies being put forth. If it's not Trump bad, they don't have anything else. Now, yeah, sure, I guess you could say, you know, Medicaid for all and forgiveness of college loans and green energy. Yeah, you could say all that. But this is the problem that Democrats face when it comes to taking over in the midterms. And the reason why Trump won was because he went after marginal groups of people. That's how elections are won. They're won within the margins. He went after the people in the crypto space. He went after he got the people in the electric car space, some of them. He went after the whole marijuana thing by reclassifying it. He went after several marginal groups that the Democrats usually pick up, and that is precisely why he won. He got so many of those smaller groups, and you know, when you get enough of them, they represent a large amount of people that will become single issue voters. And that is exactly why he won. And I currently see Democrats with zero policy being put forth, and the only thing they're running on is Trump bad, which, granted, there's enough people. If there's enough people, it could be enough to win the midterms. I would like to think that our people are smarter than that and would have some other issues that they would balance with, you know what I mean? But who knows? There's no telling. We shall see. What do you think is going to happen when the midterms come? Do you think that we're going to have this blue wave?
A lot of eyes on it. Jack, my final question for you today would be, this mission, a lot of people trying to draw comparisons to the Apollo 8 mission back in 1969.
Oh, yeah, we're going back to the moon.
What makes this one so different from what we saw back in the 60s? And what does it really tell us about how much space exploration and really all of these objectives and all of the tools, how they've advanced throughout all these decades?
Yeah, that's a big question. So how this compares to the Apollo program.
I'm going to go get some more coffee. I'll be right back.
We were landing humans on the surface of the moon. We had already basically made the decision to end the Apollo program. We stopped building the Saturn V launch vehicle. So the big difference, I would say, between Artemis and Apollo isn't just necessarily the flight trajectory, right? For Apollo 8, they orbited the moon. This is not an orbit of the moon. This is what they call a free return trajectory, actually more akin to the Apollo 13 mission trajectory. Unfortunately, Apollo 13 did not land on the moon due to the issues on that mission. But the difference really between Artemis and Apollo is the fact that Artemis is intended to be a sustainable, long-term presence on the moon. And so we're talking about building infrastructure. You know, this Artemis 2 flight is a test of a lot of the systems. It's, you know, obviously training the astronauts to operate in deep space. But it's the first of many giant leaps, if I can be so bold, to returning humans to the moon, and this time to stay.
We do have this social media post from NASA. From Apollo to Artemis, the mission endures. What we begin today will define the next era of human exploration. So what a big time that we are waiting for this Wednesday. Hopefully, if all goes well. Jack Corelli, the Director of Government Relations for the Planetary Society. Thanks so much for joining us this morning. We are previewing that epic launch, and we hope to check in with you soon.
Great. Thank you so much.
Of course. Over the weekend, we did also hear from the astronauts who are going to be on board of that spacecraft for this mission. They held a news conference, took some questions that were brought in from viewers. I want to play some of this out for you next.
And we'll begin taking questions shortly. But before we get started, I'll toss it over to the crew for some opening remarks. Reed, take us away.
Thanks, Courtney. It's great to hear your voice. Great to see the rocket on the television. I know we're here at the Kennedy Space Center, and every chance we can, we're going out to Pad 39B and just looking at that amazing vehicle that this incredible team has put together. I'll hand it over to Victor.
Good morning. It's great to see you virtually, and looking forward to answering all your questions.
Good morning, everyone. Things are certainly starting to feel real here at the Cape. Our families joined us yesterday, and we had a chance to be on the pre-test brief for the actual starting of the launch countdown. So we're excited to be a part of all that, and we're excited to share with you today.
It's a really cool feeling right now. We're just down the hall, our spacesuits. Since we got here, we've done a dress rehearsal, if you will, getting into the suits. And with the families arriving yesterday, pretty special to take them out to the pad, show them the rock in the daylight, and then again, all lit up in its spectacular beauty at night. So back to you, Courtney.
Thank you all. We'll go ahead and begin our Q&A portion of this news conference. Our first question comes from Irene Klotz with Aviation Week. Irene, if you're talking, we can't hear you.
Hi, can you hear me now?
We have you loud and clear.
Great, thank you. My question is for Reed and Victor. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't think either one of you had an opportunity to do any manual flying on your Soyuz and Dragon flights, respectively. And I wanted to just ask a little bit about the Proxox demo that you're going to be doing. If you can describe in some detail who is going to be doing what part of that exercise and what you are expecting the manual control of Orion to be like. Thanks.
Well, I'll answer the first part of that with, on the Soyuz, we have to do a hand controller checkout and a thruster checkout when we first get to space, and the Russian commander always does that from the center seat. But in the left seat, I was right next to our translational hand controller by my right knee, and Max Sarayev looked over at me and winked and was like, go ahead and just give it a tap. So I have flown a spaceship manually, and I can tell you it's pretty awesome. Victor, talk about our pod.
It's actually a really important evolution. You know, we have to make sure that the Artemis 3 and 4 missions have this capability, and so we are essentially going to make sure that the vehicle flies the way that we think it does, that we designed it to do. And so we're going to not only fly the vehicle manually, we're going to, you know, execute the 6 degrees of freedom, so translating forward, backwards, left, right, up, and down, and then also being able to rotate pitch, yaw, roll, and pitch on roll. But we also want to give, you know, qualitative and quantitative feedback to the ground team. So letting them know what it feels like now that we can hear and feel the thrusters, and to just understand the human experience. And so one really interesting thing that's going to happen during the proximity operations demo, where we're going to start out probably beyond 100 meters and get all the way in as close as 10 meters at some points in the demo, is to give them feedback, so verbal feedback. And so we're actually going to switch seats. Reed is going to launch in seat 1, I'm going to launch in seat 2, but we're going to take our suits off, and then we're going to get back into each other's seats, and he's going to run the procedure while I fly the vehicle primarily, but I'm also going to put my communication system, actually his communication system, on voice activation, so I can just talk to the ground continuously, and so the ground team can hear from the crew. It's really a crew experience to fly that vehicle, but to give them feedback on essentially, hey, this flies like the simulator, or this is how it's very different from the simulator, so that we can verify and validate the models for training the later crews.
I want to add one thing. I just want to add to the end of that is it is Victor in seat 1 and I will be in seat 2, but this is a crew activity through and through. And so Christina will be floating right to Ike's left, to Victor's left. She is really in charge of the timing discipline and the procedural discipline, maintaining the big picture to make sure we get through this safe. And if we have any off nominal, she is right there with all of our off nominal steps to get us back on track. And then Jeremy will be floating just to my right, and he is always watching the interim cryogenic propulsion stage. If anything goes wrong with that stage out the window or on the displays, he's ready to call a back way and get us back into a safe configuration. So it's all 4 of us at the controls for that evolution.
I have one more thing. And grabbed the wrong mic. But I wanted to add that, of course, ProxOps is really exciting because we are practicing the rendezvous. We get within 10 meters of our upper stage rocket. It's amazing. But there will be another activity where we manually pilot the vehicle on one of our cruise days. So you can stay tuned for that as well.
Okay, our next question is from Bill Harwood with CBS News.
Hey guys, it's great to see you all again. Take you off speaker. It's great to see you again. My question is absolutely non-technical. You know, the other night I was picking up some takeout food from Tai Tai in Cape Canaveral, and it was a crystal clear night. And I was looking up at the moon, and I don't normally think this way. I don't like the moon. I'm an amateur astronomer. I like it out of the sky so I can see the dim stuff. But I kept thinking about you guys saying, I couldn't imagine actually going there. You know, I was trying to picture that in my mind as I was looking at the moon. So I hate to make this a long question, but I mean, could a couple of you just talk about it? You're bound to do the same thing, look up and have some thoughts. What are your thoughts as people who see the moon as a destination, not just a bright globe in the sky? Thanks.
So yesterday we spent some time with our geology team lead, Kelsey, just going over the plan, and depending on which launch day we launch in this window, you know, how that changes. But looking at some of the details that we're going to be examining and the things that they're interested in, specifically different colors or just different shades, variations in the albedo of the moon. They're very interested. We look at it from different angles and different lighting. And so we look at it with sort of under this microscope all the time. And then every once in a while, I step back sort of like you did last night and just look at it. And I really feel like, gosh, that is really far away. And it just gives me great appreciation for it. And in the night sky, I've spent a lot more time looking at it through binoculars in my backyard, sharing that with my family. We've got the binoculars here, and hopefully we'll get some clear skies. They weren't last night, but for us, but hopefully we'll get some clear skies and some good viewing. But the other thing we've focused on quite a bit of as a crew is just listening to other people's perspectives on the moon and how different cultures look at the moon. And when we go back, honoring just how humanity, we all share this same moon in the sky, but honoring humans around the world and how they revere the moon. That's really important to us.
I have one thing.
Yeah.
Bill, one of the things you said right at the end of your question was, how do we feel as the people that can call the moon the destination, a destination, not just something we're looking at? And it is our strong hope that this mission is the start of an era where every person on Earth can look at the moon and think of it as also a destination.
Our next question is from Jonathan Seary with Fox News.
Thank you so much for taking the time, to the entire crew. This question is for anyone who'd like to talk about space medicine. What excites you most about what you'll be able to study beyond low Earth orbit, and how will it inform future deep space missions?
I think it's great that we're going to the moon and all that. Makes you wonder why. Right on the heels of Trump talking about disclosure, right? Which I find fascinating. And yes, you can say it's a distraction from the Epstein files. Yeah, maybe. But I don't know. As far as the war is concerned, I mean, I know that the argument would be that Trump has no conscience and doesn't care and this and that, the worst of the worst, as to why would somebody wage war just for something like that? I mean, the man's been exonerated more times than anybody, I mean, ABC and NBC, and I think at PBS as well, all of them said there was nothing incriminating in the Epstein files on Donald Trump. That's what they said. If anybody was going to report something negative, it'd be them. And, the fact of the matter is in the Epstein files, just because someone is named in them doesn't necessarily mean that they did anything nefarious. You know how many women are in those files? Now then the argument becomes, oh, well, they're eating babies. Well, I mean, it is strange how much information there is regarding that whole idea. I will say that some of it is awfully compelling, but Epstein did more than just fuck children. He did a lot more than that. He had his hands in so many things. Now, whether those things were just a means to that nefarious end, sure, okay, that's possible. But he did a lot of charity work. That's just a fact. I'm not trying to say he was a good man at all. I'm not trying to point out good things he did to leverage against the bad. That's not at all what I'm saying. What I'm saying is there were other reasons why people would have been on a flight log with him, because he had his hands in literally everything, man. Everything. You got to be when you're a billionaire, and he was a billionaire. He was a financier. He did a lot of things. So just because your name is on one of those flight logs, it doesn't necessarily mean you did something wrong. And we all know that Epstein gathered blackmail on the people he affiliated with. Is it any shock that the one person who's mentioned the most in the Epstein files happens to be the guy that worked with the FBI, which is accounted for? There's evidence to support this. This isn't just something they dreamed up and pulled out of their ass. So, despite whatever dealings they had, the fact of the matter is if anybody was going to hate Trump the most, it would be the guy who got turned in by him. Or if Epstein was going to hate anybody the most out of everybody in those files, it would be Trump for turning him in. Steve Bannon also was working with Epstein, and it was shown that Steve Bannon was instructing him on how to talk to the media and how to construct cases against people in this blackmail department. It's very, if you really look at all of these Epstein files, you'll see this. If you look at it with an unbiased eye, you'll see this. And I understand the people that are the never Trumpers. I understand your position, and I understand that you want to find every bit of incriminating evidence on this man. And that is your right. You should be able to look for those things. But there's been nothing yet that proves anything. It's all been hearsay. So, did Trump start a war to distract from the Epstein files? Come on. Really? I mean, sure, I guess it's possible, but is it likely? I just don't think so. I'm not sold. I try and look at these things with a rational eye. And as soon as you start talking like this, here come the keyboard warriors trying to lump you into all sorts of other nonsensical categories. Look, I didn't even vote for Trump. I didn't vote at all. Honestly, I didn't think anybody on the ticket was worthwhile. I wanted Trump to win just because I wanted somebody to shake the system up. But I didn't feel that was a good enough reason to vote for anybody. And some people would like to say, well, you didn't vote, so you don't get a say. You don't get to complain. And I tend to follow George Carlin's logic on it. Well, what sense does that make? I am not responsible for any of this mess that you voters created. So I, unlike you, can complain all day long about what you guys did. When I say you guys, I don't mean the people who voted for Trump. I mean everybody. Everybody that contributed to any part of the political spectrum. I'm in a unique position because I can look at these things without a bias. I'm not invested. My vote is not an invested part of the outcome of these things. I didn't vote for Trump and now have to sit here and hope that I didn't make the wrong choice, because I didn't make any choice. So I can point out the good and the bad about either side with a completely unbiased eye. And that is what I generally try to do my best at. You know what I mean? There's way too much bias. People are way too tribal. It's gotten way too ridiculous. And if you're honest with yourself, you will say the same thing.
News has sent oil prices skyrocketing and given rise to growing concerns about global energy, the crisis that we have seen around the world. Speaking of the developments that are happening in the Middle East, I want to take us out to one of the latest social media posts courtesy of President Trump. He posted this to Truth Social a short time ago, saying, quote, "The United States of America is in serious discussion with a new and more reasonable regime to end our military operations in Iran. Great progress has been made, but if for any reason a deal is not shortly reached, which it probably will be, and if the Hormuz Strait is not immediately open for business, we will conclude our lovely stay in Iran by blowing up and completely obliterating all of their electric generating plants, oil wells, and Karg Island, and possibly all desalination plants, which we have purposefully not yet touched. This will be in retribution for many soldiers and others that Iran has butchered and killed over the old regime's 47-year reign of terror. Thank you for your attention to this matter."
They have
I also want to take us out to a social media post courtesy of the Israel Defense Forces.
They have murdered the Islamic Republic of Iran has murdered over 1 million people in the last 47 years. Don't believe me? Want proof? Where's your source? There's a video that I made. It's in my videos. I forget the title of it because I changed it a couple of times. There are two videos. One of them is about why the Islamic Republic wants to destroy Israel. The other one is shit. I'll just pull it up. I'll just pull it up so you can see the title. Is Iran actually guilty of what Israel claims? Facts with sources. This video right here, my sources are vast. Here's my sources right here. All those bullet points, those are all individual sources from which I took facts from to put in this video. I highly recommend you watching it. Now, this is the one that's on YouTube. If you're watching on Rumble, the title is different, I believe, but the thumbnail says what you should know about Iran. And there's a meteor that says facts and you as the planet. And then, of course, the next video I would suggest is why does the Islamic Republic of Iran want to destroy Israel? That's I take great pride in these two videos that I just made over the weekend, and I highly suggest that you watch them so you can have a clear perspective on what's going on in Iran and involving Iran and their ridiculous ideologies. They're insane. The Islamic Republic of Iran is theocratic nonsense governing a people that believe that their Messiah is coming back only when they destroy Israel. Yeah. That would be a prophecy written by somebody who hated Israel, clearly. And looks like Trump's talking.
Weapon. Then we did the attack with the B-2 bombers, and we stopped them from having nuclear. And now we had to blow them up again. And we will probably, I think we'll make a deal with them. Pretty sure.
What's he saying on Newsmax?
As you know, they've agreed to send 8 boats.
It's the same thing.
The one regime was decimated, destroyed. They're all dead. The next regime is mostly dead. And the third regime, we're dealing with different people than anybody's dealt with before. It's a whole different group of people. So I would consider that regime change. And frankly, they've been very reasonable. So I think we've had regime change. I mean, we can't do much better than that. The regime that was really bad, really evil was the first one. That was done. The second was appointed, and they're gone. They're all dead, other than one who may have a little life in them. And then there really are the third group, and the third group of people that seem to be much more reasonable. It truly is regime change. And regime change is an imperative. I think we have it automatically. I did something today. We just got these in from the architects. A lot of people are talking about how beautiful the ballroom is. For 150 years, they've wanted to build a ballroom at the White House. And other presidents...
I do not give two shits about a ballroom. I just don't care about a ballroom. But media sure cares. You see how Caroline Levitt, I forget this media source that wrote the story, but they asked her some ridiculous question about the ballroom, and then they wrote a story about how she crashed out. Like, dude, there's so many other valid stories and valid topics you could choose to talk about. Caroline Levitt crashed out. She crashed out at your retarded question. You don't think there's any bias in the news. You have a hole in your head.
Fallen close to the holy sites a few times over the past fortnight, and police closed all holy sites because they don't have shelters. They were built so long ago that they don't have shelters in them. Now, I'm at the Aish Global rooftop, and you can see behind me, this is the Western Wall, and the plaza in front of it is completely empty with no prayer allowed. And we haven't seen this since COVID. But Prime Minister Netanyahu instructed the police to find a safe solution before Easter. And the police met with Cardinal Pizzaballa this morning, and the solution that they've come up with is for ceremonies such as the Holy Fire ceremony to be held in a symbolic, limited format and then broadcast online. And this has been welcomed by Christian leaders. Meanwhile, Israel is continuing to strike the Iranian regime. The IDF's focus appears to be really on targeting the remaining arms production sites so that Iran can't rebuild their missiles and get more weapons. And Prime Minister Netanyahu has said that the IDF will continue strikes on the regime and on proxy targets. Reporting live from Jerusalem, Jody Cohen, Newsmax.
Jody, thank you. We want to welcome in now retired Army Lieutenant Colonel and Senior Geopolitical Strategist and Black Hawk helicopter pilot and Battalion Commander Darren Gobb. Also with us this morning, foreign policy expert Harley Littman. Gentlemen, good morning to you.
Good morning. Good morning.
So a lot to get to. The president has been busy this morning on Truth Social saying this: the United States of America is in serious discussions with a new and more reasonable regime to end our military operations in Iran. Great progress, he wrote, has been made, but if for any reason a deal is not shortly reached, which will it probably will be, he wrote. And he added, the Hormuz Strait is not immediately open for business. He wrote, we will conclude our lovely stay in Iran by blowing up and completely obliterating all of their electric generating plants, oil wells, and Karg Island.
He likes that word,
possibly the desalinization plants. He's laying it out pretty clearly. And if he wasn't clear there, here's his sound from last night. He spoke to the press on Air Force One. Listen to this.
So we've had very good negotiations today with Iran, getting a lot of the things that they should have given us a long time ago. We'll see how it works out, but they're very good. Moving along.
20 more boats of oil. Apparently that is taking place as we speak, as we're looking at some breaking news from overnight. What do you expect to come from these talks, if anything? We understand Pakistan, Egypt at the table here.
Well, I think this speaks to Trump's excellent strategy with Iran now, and that is, if you want to change your enemy, you need to be able to first either change their intentions, which what Trump is trying to do by giving them an opportunity to come to terms, which would create peace in the region, the fighting, and ease any sanctions against Iran. Or you need to take away their capability. And that means to downgrade their military, which is exactly what Trump is doing. So the president is following very sound advice and very sound strategy on how to resolve this conflict. It's in Iran's court, and it's up to them at this point.
Darren, what do you make of he spoke to the press last night. He said, talks are continuing. They're going relatively well. Also touted the military objectives and some serious strikes that took place yesterday that benefit the United States. We also had incoming on many of our soldiers in Saudi Arabia on some of our military, assets as well. The back and forth, and then this post from Truth or on Truth Social just moments ago, the tenor or tone of the president ratcheted up just a bit. What was your take?
Yeah, Trump always kind of does ratchet up his negotiating terms when he thinks he's getting close, but also sees, something standing in the way of finalizing a deal, whatever that deal may look like. And I think he also knows the fact that the challenge has always been, who are you negotiating with in the first place? And do they have the ability to sign something that the people of Iran in general...
Okay. Market is going to open in approximately 20 minutes. I'm going to step outside for my last smoke before the market opens, and I shall return.
The challenge being, of course, there's a lot of red lines in a negotiation like this that Iran's not going to want to give up, specifically things like continuing pursuit of nuclear power and those things that they've always had concerns about. So I hope it does work out, and the hostilities can cease. But in the meantime, the focus needs to be on the Iranian internal security apparatus as the number one target, because that's how you can get the Iranian people a chance.
More troops, meanwhile, headed to the region this morning. We need to control the strait. We need to get the enriched uranium. We have to finish off the missile stockpile and then, of course, take out the rest of the regime leadership. What's the number one mission? Darren, let's go to you on that. At the same time, the remaining regime members are promising to, quote, burn American troops.
I think the number one mission needs to remain the destruction of the military and security apparatus within Iran, and that includes those things that are, of course, able to reach into and influence anything that works through the straits. That's absolutely critical. And that's why we need to, when you watch the Marines arrive and you watch the 82nd Airborne on their way, I think mostly of very small, discrete pieces of land that they can control with those size forces, because they're not that big, but they're big enough to do something like a Hormuz Island, a Karg Island, or maybe some of the Tumba Islands that have access and control over reaching into the straits themselves.
Harley, there are headlines this morning suggesting that special forces may be used to hunt down that uranium. Geographically, when you take a look at the map, Iran has an incredible natural fortress. The geography, Iran is protected, really from centuries of invaders. When you look back in history, you have the Alborz Mountains to the north, you have the Zagros Mountains to the west and the south, and then the scorching desert, that Iranian plateau there, right in the center. This is not an easy operation.
No, it's not, but I have a lot of confidence in our military, and they've had a lot of exercises and training for exactly this kind of procedure. The biggest challenge here is even if we open the Strait of Hormuz, and even if we downgrade the military entirely, and even if we get their uranium, what about the day after? You're going to leave a regime in power, seething with revenge, that's going to learn and adjust, come back with new missiles, reconstitute their nuclear program, and continue their mission of destroying the United States. That's their goal. So at the end of the day, if we really want to be real about this, there has to be regime change, which would transform the Middle East and give that place some rest from terrorism, violence from this regime, and be a strategic counterweight to China.
You know, Darren, we spoke a moment ago about that Iranian missile strike on the Saudi Arabia airbase. It took out several of our jets. The strike also injured 12 of our troops. Volodymyr Zelensky, Ukraine's president, was on the Sunday rounds this past weekend talking, and he said that Russia had conducted the surveillance of this U.S. target, of several U.S. targets, but this being one of them, and then provided that intel to Iran. You know, the president in the past was asked about this, and he said, you know, we spy on them, they spy on us, but this is getting increasingly dangerous, this intel that Russia is providing Iran.
Well, and it's not just Russia. China's involved, too. They're collecting a lot of different signals, intelligence, and electronics, eavesdropping throughout the region and helping with this conflict as well with Iran, because they want to maintain the access to the oil that comes out of Iran. They've lost the oil from Venezuela largely. So this is them trying to make sure they keep their relationships alive. We know Russia's been spying and helping as well. And if we were to try to complain a lot or too much or at all, frankly, they're going to just come back and say, well, we've been helping Ukraine against Russia in the first place. And it's a tug of war that you just simply can't win. It is dangerous, but you have to take appropriate measures. And there's always risk and conflict, and the enemy always gets a vote.
Colonel Darren Gobb and foreign policy expert Harley Littman. Gentlemen, thanks to both of you.
Thanks, Jen.
Questions mounting over AOC's campaign expenses today after a watchdog group filed an official complaint. We are uncovering those details for you. Plus, the House GOP slamming the Senate DHS funding deal. It's at a crossroads here. The shutdown stretching into another week. Airport security, border security, all hanging in the balance here as Congress takes that 2-week break.
Will you be able to afford your golden years? Do you worry how you'll make ends meet? You may be leaving up to $100,000 unclaimed. You need this special report. How to boost your Social Security and retirement by at least $100,000 or more. Get your free copy today. You've earned the benefits. Take advantage now. See our special offer to claim your free report. Call or go online today.
What will you do when the power goes out? Power outages can be unpredictable and inconvenient, but with a Generac home standby generator, your life goes on uninterrupted because you'll have power when you need it the most. Special financing and low monthly payment options are available. And if you call now, you will also receive a free 5-year warranty valued at over $500. Call or go online now to request your free quote. Power your life with Generac.
You served your country with honor. Now get the benefits you've rightfully earned. Paul R. Lawrence has written the book every veteran should own, Veterans Benefits for You. This step-by-step guide breaks down what you need to know, from financial compensation and disabilities to information for dependents and parents. This book is a must-read for all servicemen and women. Get your free copy today with our special offer. Call the number on your screen or go online to order. Rick Leventhal reported on the biggest stories of our time. Now he's fighting to bring you the truth, no matter what it takes. Watch The Leventhal Report, weeknights at 7 p.m. Eastern on Newsmax 2.
Hi, I'm Bianca Della Garza. What I love about working with Newsmax is the relationship we have with our viewers. So smart, so informed, it allows us to deliver powerful analysis, the sharpest viewpoints on the issues that really matter.
New scrutiny turning toward Representative Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez after a government watchdog group filed this complaint alleging possible misuse of campaign funds. Correspondent John Glasgow joining us with the very latest this morning. John?
Yeah, great to be with you here. Trouble could be on the way for AOC. Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez is being accused in a new complaint of violating federal election and House ethics rules. She allegedly got treatment from a shrink who specializes in controversial ketamine therapy. So the complaint was filed by the National Legal and Policy Center to the Federal Elections Commission last week. They're demanding a probe into her congressional campaign committee and the treasurer. AOC paid Boston-based Dr. Brian Boyle nearly $19,000 for ketamine treatment, but it was filed as leadership training and consulting, raising some eyebrows and red flags. Using congressional campaign funds for personal use is prohibited by law, as stated in the Code of Ethics. In general, a contribution or donation described in subsection A shall not be converted by any personal to for personal use, that is. Ketamine is the controversial horse tranquilizer that was given to Friends star Matthew Perry in the month leading up to his death. The former bartender turned politician has previously talked about her own mental health, claiming that she was in therapy after the riots at the Capitol on January 6. Now, AOC is not the only Democrat in Congress who have faced findings or enforcement related to violations of federal election laws. In 2020, the House Ethics Committee found Rep. Rashida Tlaib violated the federal campaign finance rules by having her campaign pay nearly a $10,000 salary to herself. And last week, Sheila Shafilius McCormick was found guilty on 25 of 27 counts of ethic violations involving $5 million in FEMA disaster relief overpayments to her family's health care company. Any congressional members who violate the House ethics rules could face fines and up to 5 years in prison. They could also be forced to reimburse their campaign fund out of pocket for any misspent money. So, no word yet from AOC on this suspicious spending, and the NLPC wants the commission to impose the appropriate penalties against the Congresswoman. Reporting here live from New York, John Glasgow, Newsmax.
John, thank you. Now to DHS funding this morning. It is not just TSA agents failing to receive their pay since Valentine's Day. 90% of the Department of Homeland Security's 260,000 staff members, they have been working without a paycheck. FEMA, Coast Guard, cybersecurity experts, border agents, all of them. It comes after House Republicans, they rejected that Senate measure to go ahead and fund TSA and other agencies, but not ICE. The House instead passed a short-term bill to go ahead and fund DHS. Now goes back to the Senate, and that's where it sits. It's all started because Democrats, they refused to fund DHS unless there were reforms to ICE, which, by the way, once again, it's already funded, fully funded by the big, beautiful bill. Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer, he posted on X, quote, "They will not give a blank check to Trump's lawless and deadly immigration militia." Those were his words over the weekend. And meanwhile, here's Senator Chris Van Hollen from Maryland saying it's not the Democrats holding up funding for the Department of Homeland Security. Listen to this.
You're holding up the entirety of the Department of Homeland Security because you object to ICE and you want changes to ICE. But through it all, ICE continues to have the money it needs.
John, we're not holding up all of the money for all the Department of Homeland Security. That's just a false statement. We have said repeatedly, repeatedly, we should fund TSA, we should fund FEMA, we should fund the Coast Guard.
Angie Wong is the chairwoman for the Capitol Hill Fight Club PAC and the executive committee woman for the Miami-Dade Republican Party. Also with us this morning, lawyer and GOP strategist Ford O'Connell. Good morning to both of you. Thanks for being here.
Good morning. Thank you for having us.
Good to see you. So starting today, TSA workers, they should start seeing some money in their checking accounts. President Trump, of course, signing that executive order to go ahead and push it through and get them paid. But the partial shutdown, you know, well, at least 2 weeks, right, before we start talking again. Coast Guard, DHS, still not getting money. Congress has left town for vacation. You heard Van Hollen there saying it's not the Democrats. How does this end? Angie, let's start with you.
Yeah, Congress right now remains in a deadlock, and they're on recess. We're seeing photos of them flying off to, vacation destinations for spring break. It's kind of ridiculous. Look, President Trump has pretty much fixed this TSA debacle. Without Congress, he went and signed an executive order reallocating funds so that TSA agents can be paid, and stranded passengers no longer have to wait 8-9 hours online in some of these airports. I checked with my airport this morning, Miami Airport, and wait times are 1 to 7 minutes. So thank you very much, President Trump. We didn't need Congress to do it. Congressional members are out on the weekend shows talking about their relevance. Well, you know, if you're away for 2 weeks and not funding the government, that's your relevance.
Yeah, it's amazing to see those airport wait lines this morning, Angie, to your point. Incredible what happens when you pay people, right? They actually show up for work. Ford, I want to ask you this. Do Republicans need to get on the same page on this? And do they risk actually, you know, having trouble in the midterms? They can't get on the same page in the Senate and the House. The Senate has a 3-vote majority. So, you know, what gives here?
Well, President Trump talks about this all the time. Essentially, Democrats, as bad as their numbers are, they stick together, and Republicans, they don't seem to stick together. And that's a big problem because the average American does not know, what a majority of the Senate is or how many members extra there are in the House. All they know is that Republicans control the House and the Senate. And essentially, they've got to, walk and chew gum and walk in lockstep. I think what's totally absurd about the TSA thing is the Democrats tried to harm, TSA workers because they were mad about ICE, but it's ICE who actually is backstopping TSA and bringing those wait lines down. That's pretty absurd when you think about it.
It really is incredible, and it was a brilliant move. And you're seeing those ICE agents. Some of the nation's airports this morning, in fact, they're helping those long lines. Borders are Tom Homan. He was on Face the Nation this past weekend. Listen to this.
If less TS agents come back, that means we'll keep more ICE agents there. The president been clear. He wants to secure those airports, especially, as I said earlier, in an increased threat posture. We need to secure those airports. ICE is there to help our brothers and sisters in TSA. We'll be there as long as they need us until they get back to normal operations and feel like those airports are secure.
So, Angie, you said your wait times are about 7 minutes right now at Miami International, but more than 500 TSA agents have already quit. So that damage is done, and you can't train up and replace a workforce that easily.
No, and we're going to have this problem going on probably, if not months, years. Look, Democrats created a national security issue by not paying the TSA and Coast Guard and everyone else just to hold up the fact that they want to essentially defund ICE. So the president had to act. One of the brilliant moves about putting in ICE agents at the airports, or more of them, is that what you're seeing is the human side of ICE. They're handing out bottles of water. They're helping out babies. In JFK, there was a baby that couldn't breathe. They helped resuscitate it. So now you're starting to see why ICE agents are there, is to help the people. Mm-hmm. I think it's a brilliant move, and I think we should just get this going. Democrats can fight another day about ICE and their policies.
But Ford, do we need to go ahead and pass I know there's 2 bills right now, some legislation that would prevent Congress from shutting down and failing to pay government workers? Do we need to get that done?
Yeah, I do think we need to get that done because, unfortunately, we seem to be in these shutdowns 2 to 3 times a year. And Democrats basically have spent half of the fiscal year already in a shutdown when we look at the last from October to October. So you need to have a stop here because Democrats are going to keep trying to short circuit the government because they think it's going to help them with their base and they think it's going to help them in the 2026 midterms. It's sickening when you think about it.
Here's Democrat Congressman Jim Hines here. He said that the president is illegally paying TSA agents. Listen.
That standoff is not done yet, right? The president is illegally paying, apparently, TSA agents. This thing is still very much live for one very simple reason. We can talk about House, Senate, changing law for one very simple reason, which is that the vast majority of Americans look at the way ICE behaved with the murder of 2 American citizens, with the constant knocking down of doors of American citizens without warrants, people dressed like they're, airlifting into Fallujah to do the legitimate work of going after illegal aliens in this country, and they say that is not okay.
Ford, I already asked you about this, Angie. How is the president illegally paying TSA? Isn't it illegal to make people work and not pay them?
Yeah, and he's not illegally paying them, but that's the whole point. That Jim Hines and the Democrats basically want to be as hyperbolic as possible. You know what's amazing, though, is the TSA union, 96% of their donations go to the Democrats. I wonder how long that's continue if they keep openly saying we are harming TSA agents intentionally because we want to neuter ICE. I mean, I don't think that's going to sell very well. But the other problem is that DHS is outside of ICE and Customs and Border Patrol. You have 20 other agencies and departments in there like CISA and the Coast Guard, which the fact that they're not being funded while we are in a military conflict with Iran, I think somebody deserves to be punished for that.
Angie, you've been pretty vocal about troops on the ground in the Middle East. Switching gears and looking at Iran this morning, you've suggested that up until a certain point, the case had not been made for you to go ahead and back troops being on the ground. Nonetheless, they are there. Your thoughts this morning as more troops are getting orders to report to the region?
No, I think Americans do support our troops being overseas, and we want to continue so. But I think the Trump administration needs to do a better job at communicating to Americans why we need to be there. I think there's a gap there. The reason is because we need to finally solve once and for all the nuclear programs that are being developed there. And we have to go underground looking for the uranium that is the reason why we're there to begin with. So we need to have that mission accomplished sign going up. But first, we need to explain to Americans.
We are just a couple of minutes away from the market opening. What kind of day are we going to have today, people? What do you have invested? Anything? Anybody investing anything? I am. I've got a nano crude oil future. I only bought one. It's got 10x leverage, so every dollar it moves, that's $10 that I make, and I'm down about $16, but that's okay. I bought it 103. We took a massive plunge. There was one candle earlier, and with this one candle, it dropped down to about 50 cents over my liquidation. And then they halted trading on this one particular future. So I couldn't sell out of it. I was going to, because I didn't know how far down it was going to go until I saw that I was right above liquidation. So, it would have been relatively the same amount of money if I had cashed out versus being liquidated. So I quickly decided not to. And as soon as they resumed trading, it popped right back up and then went up a little bit. So not one shred of news, but mind you, no explanation whatsoever. That is clear manipulation in my opinion. Because Brent didn't do anything. I think, this is the same candle actually. So something was going on. But I find it quite interesting. Nobody said a word about it. Trading was halted on Coinbase. I'm not sure where else it was halted. If you know, by all means, let me know. We are about 2 minutes away from market opening. I'm going to go back to the heat map. Crypto is about flat for the last hour. Everything's looking green for pre-market. I'm going to change this to the 1 hour. That will start moving as soon as the market opens. And we are just moments away. This is an ETF heat map of all the ETFs. I wish I could change it, but it's set on daily percentage movement, so we likely won't see very much. Halliburton looking like they were ready to pop. Let's go to Bloomberg.
Look at it through is essentially how many do we build and in what way? Because the one thing is we are going to invest to build it right and to build it for longevity. But do you need 10 of them? No. Building 4, that was the right number. And do we potentially want to build a couple more? Maybe a couple more, but I don't think we need 10 because they won't always be in use all the time.
I imagine that at different points you need to tell people no. What's that process like for you?
Oh yeah, it's a key role in the CFO position. It is a word that most people are used to, and yet they still think you're not going to say it.
We're going to market opening now.
What is going to be the consequence for U.S. markets?
Less than 1 minute, baby.
We are seeing modest gains across European equity markets.
Take a look at how we're faring when it comes to Asian markets.
Bringing you up-to-the-minute global news.
Let's go.
I'm Hazlida Amin in Davos, Switzerland.
There we go. Bing, 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 bing.
Just seconds until your trading day starts. You're watching Bloomberg Open Interest. I'm Danny Berger. Matt Miller is off. He is back tomorrow. We're starting with gains this week as yields move lower. S&P up 0.8%, as is the NASDAQ. Russell 2000 even better, again, off the back of lower yields. Maybe we're starting to price in growth concerns for this market and not just inflation. Maybe you need to dust off the stagflationary playbook. I don't know, but either way,
look at that.
Kind of a cool day down at the NASDAQ and the New York Stock Exchange.
Look at all that green.
At the New York Stock Exchange, we have Women in Financial Markets. It's a nonprofit that promotes, you guessed it, women in financial markets. Always a valiant cause, I do
That's
say.
a lot of green upon the market opening. Oh, shut up. I don't know why it keeps doing this. I paid for a year subscription with TradingView. Dollar's looking strong. Gold and silver both are doing fairly well. Heat map, there's a lot of green, baby. Crypto's flat. ETFs, look at that. They were all red and flat, and now they've all jumped roughly 1%. Not bad, not bad. Our crude oil futures are up almost 2%. Brent is up over 2%. Natural gas down. Gasoline futures up 1%. Coffee down. Soybeans up. Sugar down. Cotton up. Halliburton. Ooh, look at that. Halliburton took a little bit of a jump. It sure did. Look at that. Look at that. You've got almost a 2%. I think that's over 2%. Yeah, 2.09. It's coming back down. Palantir taking a bit of a jump. Lockheed Martin flooring it this morning. All right. Up almost 2%. ExxonMobil. I wouldn't expect these guys to do too very much. I mean, they're running a little bit. But, you know, they lost bidding for the oil we got from Venezuela, which a lot of people are trying to say, oh, we can't use that oil. It's not the right kind. Yeah, well, about that. ConocoPhillips, I think Sunoco, and Valero, they are all using that oil. So those might end up being the cheaper gas stations. Maybe. A little bit. ConocoPhillips, what did I just say? ConocoPhillips on a tear. Look at that. Very nice. Very nice. I'm telling you guys, oil might not be moving right now. This is the nano crude oil futures. I've got one myself. I'm down because I bought it 103. But in the long term, I do believe we're going to see a little bit of a spike. Brent looks like it's making a little bit of a bull flag. Silver holding strong. Ethereum sideways. Bitcoin on a nice upward trend. How long will it last? I don't think this is going to last very long. I do believe Bitcoin is probably going to come down below 60,000 in the little bit more protracted long term. Not too long term though. This year, I do believe we're going to go below 60 grand. Just because that's on par with historically what Bitcoin does in bear markets. You know, the first bear market we had, Bitcoin dropped 90-something%. The second bear market, which was 4 years later because of that 4-year cycle, 4 years later, it dropped 80-something%. And then for the next two cycles after, it was in the 70s. And currently, the most we've dropped is somewhere between 50 and 60. So it would seem you've got this telescoping effect on the actual bear market and how much it drops, because it seems to be getting lighter and lighter each time. So we're kind of on par with that. But I just don't think we're done seeing some of the downward side of things, just because we're not too far into the crypto bear market yet. I would say probably around November or December of this year might be the bottom, and then we'll spend the next 2 years after that moving sideways, up and down. And then I would say November of 2029. Mark your calendars, baby, because that's probably around the time when the next bull market is going to kick in. And historically, we all know what those bull markets do to crypto. Lots of people are going to make lots of money. You should be one of them. I made a video about Bitcoin that I do believe everybody should check out. You know, put your biases aside. Just because you like Bitcoin doesn't mean that you play with Donald Trump's balls. It just means you have your eyes open. What's the name of the video that I made? It was... Look here, baby. Yeah. Is crypto just a scam, or are you missing the bigger picture? That's what it is on YouTube. It's something else. I think it's titled differently on Rumble. Just look for that. Thumbnail. It's purple, has me in a hoodie, and it says "A Case for Bitcoin." I just give a logical perspective on it, and I discuss some of the history involved in it and what the international banking cartels have tried to do since its inception. And upon failing to get rid of it, if you can't beat them, join them. But yeah, all right. Dollar looks like it's creeping upwards, which probably doesn't bode well for silver and gold. Overall, we are having a fantastic green day. We've had a couple of losers. Apple, Cisco, GE, whatever MU, I don't remember. Energy looking fantabulous. Everything's looking pretty good. Crypto heat map for the last hour is sideways. Our ETFs are looking pretty good too. Hasn't really changed too much. How's the volume looking? How much money is being pumped into them? Kind of a mixed bag. Crude oil futures up 2%. Brent up 2.5%. Gasoline futures up 1.5%. Halliburton, Palantir, Lockheed Martin, Exxon Mobil. Look at this. Exxon Mobil's holding its run. That's pretty good. Congratulations if you have any Exxon Mobil stock. I'm actually surprised that they're doing well. They're going to do well because of the price of oil. But they'd be doing better if they had won any of that bidding war, like ConocoPhillips. It looks like a better investment to me. Let's check out that will be coming. It's been said that it's coming in June or July. What can you do in the meantime? Well, you can invest in some of the companies that SpaceX buys from, some of their suppliers. You've got NVIDIA as one of them, but you've also got Broadcom. You've also got ST Microelectronics. Look at that. Nice. You've got Astronics. Totally a great name. Astronics. I think Astronics is such a great name because Astronics is going to run up a little bit. And of course NVIDIA, but there's also a company called Bastille. I don't know which one is which. It's a South Korean company you can't even invest in unless you go to the South Korean stock exchange. But that's where that's where SpaceX gets a lot of their metal from, mostly their steel, but they also get aluminum and other metals that they might need, tungsten, stuff like that. They get them from the South Korean company, Bastille Holdings. I think they're worth looking into. Halliburton coming down off its run. Looks like a lot of the big players are coming down a little bit from their initial opening, which is usually what happens. Oh, yeah, baby. Come on. Come on, baby. Push. Huh, I'm only down $6 now. Shit, yeah. Hell yeah. Shit, yeah. Give me my $6. Yeah, I bought one crude future. It was about $100, but it comes with 10x leverage. So every time it moves $1, I get $10. Every time it moves up $1, I want it to run up to about 110, and I'll make me a cool $100, a give or take. And it's more like 113 for that $100. If it goes up to 110, it's like $70, something like that. Bitcoin giving back some of its run up. It looks like the 68,000 mark is a little critical. Ethereum following suit. Brent still building I guess that's kind of a bull flag. It's a flag, but I don't know. Silver still coming down, busted through that support. Looks like it's holding around the same area that it was holding here. Interesting indeed. That is what you call a triple bottom, ladies and gentlemen. I do believe it's going to continue to come down. Broke through because the dollar is continuing up. Dollar's going to keep going up as long as crude oil is going up because it strengthens the petrodollar. War is very profitable for the United States of America. That's not to say that that is the fuel behind why we're going to war. It's a byproduct of it for sure. But you got to be careful. Don't be so quick to make these judgment calls when you don't have all the information. And believe me, you and we're the peasants. We do not have all the information, okay? You just don't. We do not have enough information to extrapolate and actually come to a decent conclusion. We can speculate all day, but mind your biases. Don't give in to wanting to feel a particular way about these geopolitical events going on. The media does not do a good job in reining in those biases. In fact, they predicate on them. So, just be mindful. Just be mindful of your biases when extrapolating information from some of the shit you see. I see huge intellectual failures across all social media, but yeah, mind your biases, people. It doesn't look like anybody's saying anything worthwhile.
I'm Major Garrett in Washington.
I don't care.
Geopolitical risk than its peers. Europe's top antitrust chief says that tech trends of snapping up startup talent and technology without embarking on a formal takeover warrants further scrutiny. European Commission Executive Vice President Teresa Ribera has been meeting with tech executives and regulators in the U.S., and I'm so pleased to say joins us now. Thank you so much for joining us, Commissioner.
Yeah, I don't care.
Disappears. Overall, though, I think the market sympathy for this war in Iran is fading, right? They're getting sick of this, and our attention spans are so short now.
Oh, God,
it's 4 weeks. It's 4 weeks.
All right.
Yeah. A lot of Americans, they are not invested in the stock exchange, as you know, Dennis, and really gas prices, the stickers going up or down at the gas pump is really their Dow, if you will.
Yeah,
that's how
most people are one policy voters.
Thanks very much. And the next person I'm going to call up is the borough president, who I've actually known longer than anyone else here, which is why I always look at you when I'm panicked, I guess.
Thank you, Commissioner. Thank you, Mr. Mayor, Controller, Public Advocate, and our Executive Director of DC 37.
I've got a hilarious video I want to play. Oh, dear God, this was some funny shit. AI is getting wacky, and I love it. It's so hilarious. Let me see if I can find it. Yeah, I can find it with him. I think. Yeah, a lot of Pattaya stuff because I am moving to Thailand, baby. It's not in there. Give me a second. This is totally worth it. This AI video of Trump. Well, this one's pretty funny. Oh shit, that was hilarious. Okay, I'm desperately trying to find this because it is just so damn funny. And I will find it. It's definitely in here. It's just, I didn't want to go here because I've sent this guy way more stuff since then. Come on. There it is. Check this out. It's Trump making meth. So sad. Yeah, I found that at the same time that I found this. This is great. There was one more. Yeah, here we go. It's Kim Jong-un. This is AI. That is why important to me. Oh, Jesus, this shit's funny. I love AI. It's so great. If any of that offended you, shut up. Grow a sense of humor. Because that was funny. I don't care what side of the aisle you sit on. That shouldn't matter. We should all be able to come together and laugh. Laughter is the best medicine, isn't it?
People to make tough, difficult choices. So we're very happy to be here, and we support on behalf of the workers. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Drop a like! Drop a like!
Thank you. I'm just coming back to say that we'll take on-topic questions now. Thank you.
Don't worry, we'll have on-topic too. All right, we'll start with some on-topic questions, though.
As we're watching this live press conference happening here with New York City Mayor Mamdani on childcare, they are transitioning now to a question.
Fuck Mamdani.
In a balanced budget, we have a surplus.
No, we don't.
I have about 15 seconds. Take it, Dennis. It's extraordinary. We'd balance our budget if we,
Even the federal government admits that there's over $500 billion a year in fraud in Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid. Okay,
yeah.
And those three alone. It's only beginning, and finally it's coming out. Let's keep up the pressure.
If you just started there, it'd be a windfall. Dennis Neal, always great to have you on a Monday. Thank you, sir.
Thanks.
From the Newsmax Crime Desk, a new way to rob you. Phony trucking companies. They're stealing entire loads of cargo.
Damn.
But first, you're watching News Now, right here on N2.
Damn. Stealing entire loads of cargo. That's wild. I wonder, fake trucking companies, huh? That's very interesting. Let's go over to CBS real quick.
And who shelled out, $400? They're now mad at Florida's Barbie Dream Fest.
Oh, I just do not care. In fact, I do not care so much. I'm getting rid of that entire bullshit. Let's see what these guys are saying. Nothing. They're saying nothing. They got their commercial music going on.
How we can take care of our own citizens.
Commissioner, really appreciate you stopping by here as well on your tour for the U.S. For you to explain to us what you're looking at, that is the European Commission Executive Vice President Teresa Ribera. Thank you so much. Coming up, Cisco is buying Jetro Restaurant Depot. $29 billion is the price tag on that as shares fall 12.5%. We'll have the deal details for you up next. You're watching Bloomberg Open Interest.
All these damn songs YouTube's going to charge me a nickel for. I want to go over to Yahoo real quick. Wrong one.
He knows that the audience wants to see people riding horses.
It's called Guns. You ask Taylor, he says his formula is Guns and Enterprise. Having a brand, voice is the most important thing that you can have. When I talk to people about DeTabio, as a CEO, as a marketing master, as the thing, he has a voice. You know what I'm saying? There's a certain way he does things. So I think the idea, I try to have a voice. We want to get other people who have voices. You know what I'm saying? And whether if you're looking at a piece of art.
I don't care about that. Guys, we're looking like we're having a fairly okay day. I wouldn't say it's exceptionally strong, but I will say it's not bad. What's this guy saying?
This will also have a vendor that is contracted to provide this service, but also
even though I despise this dickhead, I still want to hear what he's saying.
Making this a possibility today.
Hey, Mr. Mayor, how are you?
Hey, how's it going?
Where
were you in the inner circle?
You
were there?
We had our whole table. You were sitting next to
I mean on the stage.
No.
Mrs. Rachel is over here.
I know.
Gail Brewer's over there.
How much is this contract specifically going to go out for? What do you expect that to be? And is this any different than what Eric Adams had announced last October? Is there anything changed since then?
There are a few things. First change is that we're expanding eligibility to include everyone who works within this building. Prior, it had only been eligible for DCAS employees to be able to apply. Secondly, the prior administration had only put capital funding towards this, no actual operating funding towards the running of this site. We are going to be putting that funding into the executive budget. We anticipate that will be around $2.3 million.
What are we doing?
That's for this site. Yes, for this site. Yes.
And what are we doing?
And I guess building on Craig's question,
child care.
The pilot program in October. When do you anticipate expanding that to DCAS run facilities or city run facilities beyond here in other boroughs, or are you waiting to see the success here before you expand that?
I think we are pursuing every possible avenue to make it easier to have kids and raise those kids here in the city, especially when we're talking about for so many of the workers who keep the city running. And so this is something that we're pursuing for children from 6 weeks to 3 years. I'm sorry. Alongside pursuing universal 2K for every single 2-year-old by the end of 4 years.
You know, I'm skeptical of any politician doing anything with kids. Because it seems like every time they do, there's some nefarious shit going on. You know what I mean? It's just, I wish I could have more faith in our elected officials, but I have none. I just don't. I mean, some I do, but overall, I'm very skeptical of anything when they involve children, for obvious reasons. Scammers posing as trucking companies. I want to hear this.
With search warrants across Los Angeles, Riverside, and San Bernardino counties. What they found? $7 million in stolen cargo, including electronics, appliances, AC units, and sneakers, plus another $1 million in cash.
That's a big operation.
Companies ripped off: Amazon, Costco, Disney, many more.
They were stealing everything they could get their hands on.
This was an amateur hour. Investigators say it was a precision-run organized crime ring, and now they want a clear message to be sent.
Put them in prison for as long as they can. No deals.
Yes, sir.
No free deals. just put them in prison for whatever the law states. Do that.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
9 people have been arrested in connection to this operation, but
Good.
their names haven't been released yet because we've been told that this is still a very active investigation and more arrests are likely. But even looking past this particular case, Shannon, cargo theft is a major problem in both the U.S. and Canada. A cargo net estimate pegs losses at around $725 million in 2025 alone, with California being the hardest hit state. And investigators feel that those losses could...
I am going to pop over to Bloomberg because they're talking about
Her team
Cisco.
alongside me every Wednesday on Bloomberg Deals at 12 p.m. New York time. Coming up in the next hour, Katerina Sananti tells us if the correction is nearing an end. Ken Kinsella discusses anxiety around private credit
Every time
funds
I
and
turn around, they're running off to a commercial. See you. Fuck you, mom dummy. Go over to Schwab. See what Schwab is saying. They're in commercial. Let's see what Schwab is saying.
From the opening bell to the closing bell, we've got you covered.
Get inside the minds of pro traders.
My point is that they're getting a higher rate of change in sales based on their guidance, but not the same rate of change on EPS.
Follow the biggest headlines, live analysis, breaking news, and sharp trade ideas minute by minute.
With shows built for action, we break it all down in real time with speed, accuracy, and precision.
I think one of the most important things is you're making it.
I think I want to play this video. This is not a live video, but I do think it has some importance. It's a new warning being issued by Iran.
Iran is issuing a sharp new warning to the United States. Iran's parliament speaker says if U.S. forces launch a ground invasion, Tehran's troops are ready to, quote, set them on fire. The threat comes as thousands of U.S. troops move into the region, and Pakistan's foreign minister says it will soon host talks between the U.S. and Iran. Chief correspondent Jonathan Hunt is in Tel Aviv with the latest for us. Jonathan.
John, a U.S. ground operation may be on the way, and it could happen very soon. That is doing little, though, to deter Iran from continuing to attack Israel and its Gulf neighbors. A missile slammed into southern Israel near the town of Beersheba today, sending a huge plume of gray smoke over the area. Apparently it was some sort of chemical facility that was hit. Local residents were told to keep their windows shut and their air conditioning off because of the toxic fumes produced as a result of that strike. Meantime, the U.S.
Wild. Well, guys, shit.
Installations among the most recent targets for U.S. aircraft. As those 2,500 Marines you mentioned arrive aboard the USS Tripoli, they would be probably the spearhead for any sort of U.S. ground operation that President Trump decides to order. But Iranian officials are saying they are ready for whatever the U.S. does next, and they are mocking President Trump's decision.
Dude, even if they knew they were going to lose, they would still be this way. Oh, Jesus, they're playing this.
Afterward, he decides to manage the war. This unbalanced and deceitful individual has inflicted extensive damage on the people of the United States, Europe, and countries around the world, especially the countries of West Asia.
Yeah, this smug sucker. I can't wait to see him dead. Yeah, I wouldn't assume that Iran would concede any loss anyway. They're fueled by a maniacal, absolutely ridiculous, prophecy-based government, for Christ's sake. No pun intended. So yeah, they're not going to back down. They're going to stay belligerent. They're going to stay smug, because in their minds, they're doing this for God, or, you know, their prophet told them that they must destroy Israel. So, you know, and their silly-ass book tells them that it's okay to lie and be deceitful and kill and murder for the sake of this ridiculous prophecy-based bullshit. Watch some of my other videos about why Iran hates Israel, the atrocities Iran has committed. There's 2 videos I made them this weekend. They making one of them really upset me. Gathering the facts for them. The shit that the Islamic Republic has done to their own people. They've killed over 1 million people in the last 40 years. And in the video, I talk about it. And I talk about how some of them were kids. And how those kids were strung up by crane. They were hung by cranes. 6 at a time. Thousands. Over 1 million people were murdered by the Islamic Republic of Iran. And I made that video and included sources. Over a dozen sources that you can check all you want. Fact check me to death. But in my opinion, based on that alone, the Islamic Republic of Iran must be destroyed. Sorry, that's how I feel. Whatever your thoughts on Israel and whatever you think Israel has done, is anybody innocent? No. Has Israel or the United States done reprehensible things in the name of war? Sure. Oh, in the name of freedom or liberation, which the people of Iran definitely could use some liberation, especially their women. You know, these maniacs look at women as just another animal for men to use. And they also look at little boys as a means to sexual gratification. And they're not afraid to marry children. This is the evil we're attempting to stamp out. Meanwhile, Iran is jumping on every bandwagon they can because they know exactly what talking points arouse the American people, sowing dissent. It's exactly what they do with their propaganda bullshit videos that they keep pumping out. They're pretty good at it. They're definitely winning the meme war. But don't let any of these things sway your opinions, man, because propaganda is always going to show up, especially during a time of war. None of it is an indication of who's right. None of it. From your side or theirs, none of it is a clear indication of who's right. So while they're funny, feel free to laugh, but don't use any of that BS as a means to determine whether or not this war is justified. Because, you know, if you stand for humanity, if you stand for women and children, then you would, and if you knew the facts that I lay out in those videos I made, and if you are honest with yourself, then you will agree that these maniacs need to be stopped. Religious prophecy is what they base their entire government on. And it all centers around bringing back their prophet, not Muhammad, but there were 12 people after Muhammad, and the 12th one vanished. And apparently he was sent to another dimension from which he will return, but only after we destroy Israel. Funny how these people from another dimension have declared their hatred for Israel, and these morons eat it up and have based their entire government's mission on these ridiculous and downright stupid prophecies. It's tantamount to believing in fucking magic. And these idiots must be stopped. That's my opinion. They've murdered over 1 million people. I can't say it enough. But that's the result of having ridiculous and poisonous religious philosophy embedded in your government. Everybody can take a lesson from that. Anyway, that's all I got, people. I love you. Thanks for hanging in and watching. If you want, you can back up to where this video was almost exactly an hour in, a little less than an hour in. I went on several good rants today. But yeah, I'm going to take one last look. Ethereum coming down, following Bitcoin. My oil future still in the red, but looks like it's making a decent correction and maybe on its way back up. I hope so. Brent oil futures following suit. Silver looking a little stagnant. I think we're going to have to wait a while on anybody who's waiting on silver to run. You're probably going to have to wait a while. This war screwed up what it was going to do because it is highly dependent on the dollar coming down. Because whenever you see the price, big difference, of silver and gold going up, you're actually watching the value of the dollar come down. So as long as the dollar is being propped up by oil prices going up, you're going to continue to see silver and gold either remain stagnant or come down. So until this war is resolved and the dollar can go back to its normal activity, you're not going to see silver and gold make much of a run up until then. That's why it's historically taken so long for silver to make these moves. You know, I wouldn't wait around. I wouldn't sell because I still believe silver and gold are going to make a good run up. I just don't. It's hard to say when. If you look at the Fibonacci's for silver, it's going to run up to about 130, 140-ish. And then it's going to come down probably 50% again, back down to where it is now. And then once that consolidates, we should run on up to about 200. This is providing that no other crazy geopolitical things come along and affect it, which, you know, you can never count on that. You're always going to have something geopolitically affecting these things. So that's why it's going to take a while. The dollar, there's lots of manipulation propping up the dollar, you know, and a lot of everything affects the dollar. So unless the dollar is allowed to plummet a good bit, silver and gold are going to remain where they are, stagnant. I don't think we're ever going to go below 50 again. I think that's the new bottom. Crypto heat map looking flat. Stock heat map mainly green. Looks like the electronic technology sector is taking some pretty good hits, as are the producer manufacturing. Everything else is looking pretty good. Energy minerals look like the clear winner of the day. Come on. The ETF heat map's looking pretty damn flat. Crude oil futures up almost 3% overall. Natural gas futures down. Gasoline futures up. Coffee down. Soybeans up. Sugar down. Cotton up. Wheat up. Corn down. Bitch. Damn fucking laptop. Halliburton looking pretty flat. Palantir sucking it. Lockheed Martin sucking it. ExxonMobil killing it. Well, no, not killing it. They're doing pretty good. They're up 6% for the day. That's pretty damn good, actually. ConocoPhillips still up about 1%. Broadcom took a dive, a hell of a dive. ST Microelectronics setting up a little flag, it seems. Astronics, best name in the entire stock market. Astronics, I love Astronics. Nvidia, nothing to see here, folks. Nothing too very impressive. Overall, though, we are having a decent day. I hope my oil futures run up to about 113-ish. Give me my cool $100. Cash out. Give me my cash. That is the name of the game. I hope y'all made some money. That's it for me, guys. Stay unbiased. Peace, love, and hair grease. Love you in the mouth. I am out of here.